Hi there, you are watching a live stream from the Weather Network. I'm Kim McDonald. I don't see anything, so maybe my producer can help me with that. But we do have a number of watches and warnings in Ontario. We are very concerned about the tornado watch that is up right now in eastern Ontario. Anything from Bancroft to Brockville, including Ottawa, so around the capital region and the Ottawa Valley as well. So there's our area under that tornado watch, and then we have widespread severe thunderstorm warnings on both sides of the border between Ontario and Quebec as well, and a few severe thunderstorm warnings a little bit closer to Georgian Bay and down around Barrie, Orillia. We've seen a storm starting to develop there as well. So a lot of things are popping off right now as we speak, and it's going to be an active afternoon. We're most concerned obviously about tornadoes. Tornado watches mean that, okay, we have the ingredients today that a tornado may form out of these severe storms, and a warning means that one is likely on the ground. So it's either been spotted by a storm spotter or it has been seen on radar. So we have a few people in the field, including Patrick de Belfoy. I think we're going to go to him now. He is a long-time weather reporter on Meteo Media in Montreal, and he's used to being out in the field in stormy conditions. We've been talking to him over the winter months as well as in the summer months too, and I think we have him standing by. Okay, Patrick, there you are. What are you waiting for today? I see that we have a lot of warnings on the Quebec side of the border as well. So kind of set the scene where you are and what you've been seeing so far. I don't know if Patrick can hear me. No, he cannot. Okay, so he's shaking his head no. I don't know, maybe he can hear somebody else. Okay, well, we will get live streaming, right? What can I tell you? Okay, so if there is a tornado warning where you are, the best locations in your home, we always say go to a basement if you have one. If you don't have a basement, you go to the lowest room in your home, away from windows. I know people get excited when they see storms. Some people are afraid and will automatically go to an interior room or basement, and other people will run to the window or run to their front porch. We don't want you to be there, especially in the case of a tornado. So we've got this air mass that has set up a lot of energy, and then a cold front that is moving through. It is a perfect setup for severe weather, and we're talking about a number of areas where we're seeing storms lining up through the afternoon. So it's going to be over the next several hours that we'll be dealing with this. Jacqueline Whittle has been looking at these cells starting to develop as well. I know that she's had her eye on the radar for the last little while. Some storms been popping up, not enough rotation to issue a tornado warning yet, Jacqueline, but we're certainly watching these carefully.
Yeah, you bet, Kim. We are watching for where that strongest thunderstorm energy is in place. And I'm going to get right into these maps because you can see where the radar and where you've been showing those storms are currently located. They're going to move into an area that actually has more thunderstorm energy, probably within, the next half hour to hour. So we're talking about due north of Ottawa, Gracefield, Lachute. Boy, this brings back memories, right, of the Barrhaven day when we were tracking tornadoes here at the Weather Network, and hopefully it's not a repeat of that. But yeah, this area here, just north of Ottawa, Arnprior, all those areas, that red is showing 25 to 4,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. You might say, Jacqueline, what the heck does that mean? It just means that there's a lot of thunderstorm available energy in terms of getting updrafts to be healthy and sustained, and that means strong storms. And that means they haven't entered that environment yet. So once they do, we're expecting those storms to potentially even become stronger. Let's go back to the tornado watch. Kim, of course, you already mentioned this, but yeah, we've got this from Bancroft all the way over to Cornwall, Ottawa, of course, included in that. And we want you to really take this seriously because all the ingredients are there, much like the Barrhaven day. Not to say that that's going to happen, or certainly not in that particular location, but the same kind of ingredients are in the atmosphere. What we look for is basically wind shear. So winds changing direction with height as we go up in the atmosphere. If we have winds at the south, or at the surface rather, maybe coming from the south or southeast, and then you go up a little bit and they're coming from, say, the west, southwest, and you go up to the upper levels and they're out of the northwest, that means something's going to be turning or spinning. We call it vorticity. that is possible today. So that's the key ingredient that we really watch for. But before I send it back into to Kim, I just want to go to the satellite overlaid with some radar, because what's catching my eye here is this available clearing on the satellite. That may not look like a lot, but what that means, if I'm storm chasing, I'm headed right for those cells that are in the clearing where the sun has the opportunity to really destabilize and heat up the lower parts of the atmosphere. So that's where I'd be heading if I was chasing. If I'm a resident, I'm staying tuned to the weather network, because, Kim, as we know, these storms are going to be ongoing until the later part of the afternoon and evening hours. And of course, it is a Thursday, and this Friday marks the beginning of potentially a lot of people traveling for the long weekend. So there could already be people on the road. Of course, you know, this whole area, Kim, is, you know, cottage country, and a lot of campers out there. So if you know somebody out there that maybe a bit vulnerable, maybe they're in a tent and they have access to cell service, give them a heads up today that we are looking at a very significant severe weather threat, including the risk for tornadoes, hails, heavy downpours, flash flooding concern, Kim, is there as well. And I'll throw it back over to you. You're looking at supercell potential, are you?
Yeah, and you know, it's this area that seems to be getting hit time and time again this summer. I think people in the eastern region of Ontario are getting used to having tornado watches and warnings in place. So we do have supercell potential in this exact area that is tornado watched at the moment, and then a little farther to the west around that Barrie Aurelia area, we've been seeing some cells there too. We do have Patrick de Belfoy now. I set him up really nicely the last time, but he couldn't hear me, so he missed the grand introduction. But we have Patrick out in the field somewhere that you're used to being in a storm setup like this. So paint me a picture of where you are and what you're expecting.
Okay, we are a little east of Ottawa, just on the south shore of the Ottawa River. Right now, and this is something that we need to mention, right now it looks like it's sunny. It is a little sunny, but it looks like it's very, very calm. That's the tricky part, because what's going to happen is, because the sun is now coming out a little, it's going to heat the ground. That ground's not able to keep that heat. It's going to warm up the air that's on top. That air is full of humidity and vapor. So it's going to rise, go up, and then feed the cloud mass. I'll give you an example. Here's one of the clouds. I lost my camera to show you. This is what we call a towering cumuluses. It's one of the examples of that movement of the air rising, and rising really fast, and feeding of humidity these clouds, which in return is going to make thunderstorms. So we have seen a few cells quite in the south of here, in Ottawa Valley, but south of here, going toward the state of New York. Most of them seem to have died down, but we also have seen some in the north part over the higher Laurentian. Now these cells seems to be hanging on a little. Like Jacqueline was explaining, and like you were saying also, Kim, there's also still that cold front coming in, and that's going to also move the air up really, really fast, feeding up the style of the clouds, and eventually bringing thunderstorm and maybe tornadoes.
Yeah, and I'm glad that ECCC has issued a tornado watch nice and early. It gives people the time to prepare for something like this, because as we both know, Patrick, these storms can come up very quickly. So it's good to know now what could possibly happen, as we were seeing those little storms here and there starting to bubble up. Some of them showed signs of rotation, then kind of died down a little bit. And as you know, this too is an area that seems to be getting hit time and again.
Yeah, we saw that in July 13, about 2 weeks ago, where the Ottawa regions had, we knew very early in the day that there was going to be some tornado possible, and sure enough, south of Ottawa, a tornado formed. Now, for our viewers, if you're wondering what's going on, if there's a tornado in your area, first of all, you don't get out taking pictures for the family. You stay indoors. You don't go by the windows to look outside. You stay inside where there's a wall. And you will literally feel like there's a train going in your backyard. It starts shaking, it starts moving. That means there's a tornado really close to where you are. You need to take shelter. Either you lie in a bath with a mattress on top of you, or you find a closet that's in the middle. You have to put as many walls between you and the tornado as possible so you are protected. But please, if you feel that it's just now something big is happening outside, thanks for the pictures, but do not risk your life.
Well said, Patrick. 100% agree. Okay, you stay safe out there. We'll check in with you later, hopefully. And yes, Patrick de Belfoy from our sister station, Meteo Media. He's just on the other side of the border through the Gatineau region, I believe. So there's the Ottawa River. This whole area, both sides of the Ontario-Quebec border, currently under this tornado warning. So when you're looking at this map, anything in this kind of rust color, that's the watch, the tornado watch right now. In the red, that's our severe thunderstorm warning, and in the yellow, that's our severe thunderstorm watch. So if you are under a severe thunderstorm warning, it likely means that there are storms that are happening or are imminent where you are, and it is from severe thunderstorms that tornadoes can develop. So this is an atmosphere that we're watching closely today because it looks like with the energy, with the cold front that's moving through this region of the province and Quebec too, of Ontario and Quebec, that it looks like the idea of rotation is likely, and so that's why the watch is in place. It doesn't mean that it is guaranteed. So a tornado watch does not mean that a tornado is guaranteed, but we just have the ingredients that it could happen. And of course, as we know, I'm going to go to Jacqueline now. As we know, when it comes to tornadoes, we can't predict them hours in advance. These things come up very quickly, Jacqueline, and sometimes it's only a moment that you know, or a few minutes that you know that a tornado is on the ground. That's why these watches are so important when we have any sense that they might happen.
You're right, Kim, because sometimes, right, we get those tornado watches well in advance and we're prepared. And there's a lot of pressure on Environment Canada to put those watches out in advance, and they do a great job at it. But yeah, it catches all of us forecasters off guard. I can think of an example yesterday in Alberta where there wasn't a tornado watch, but we went right to a tornado warning. And that does happen because the atmosphere is a chaotic space that is always changing. And so, yes, we've got the tornado watch right now in place. So everybody does have lots of leeway, lots of time to get prepared. And of course, you gave some great advice about where you should be in your home and where you want to be safe. So let's go to the radar and we'll talk a little bit about the parameters that we have. What makes a day like today different is really wind shear. So when those winds are changing direction with height, that's how a storm can spin. If you don't have that, then you're going to be talking about heavy downpours, maybe some strong wind gusts, lots of lightning, and a beautiful looking storm, but there wouldn't be any tornado threat. That's the difference today. And it's not like it's widespread. There's a reason why the tornado watch is where it is because that's where the most abundant wind shear is in place. So a couple things that are catching my eye, Kim, right now on the radar is we've seen this cluster of storms sort of move through the Nickel Belt and in through parts of cottage country earlier. And now we've got a couple isolated storms, one in Bancroft here, another one down here. I'll just zoom that in and we'll get a better idea of where that location is. These are the ones that are kind of getting close to that favorable environment. And you can even see some little, what I call blips. That's not a technical word, by the way, but these little blips on radar, these are likely new storms going up. So they're baby storms, right? So we look on satellite first to see where those storms are happening, where we see the clouds. And then if those clouds are precipitating or, producing rain or hail, then they'll start to show up on radar. That's what we're looking at now. So a couple of these ones here that are just baby storms, we're watching those because those ones are the ones that not only are new and are in a very favorable environment, but they are also isolated and on their own. Now, the best environment, though, for rotation is around here. So there's an isolated storm cell that we should watch. A couple of these new blips that are coming up on radar, we will watch very closely. What doesn't have me terribly concerned right now, and I could be wrong, I don't always nail this, but this is a big cluster of storms. Well, it's much more difficult to get this or any of these little individual cells to rotate because they're joined together. What you're looking for typically, if I'm out storm chasing, I'm looking for these isolated storm cells that are off in their own little land and they have the opportunity to produce something. That's if I'm on the hunt for tornadoes. As a viewer, you're not on the hunt for tornado. Leave that for me, leave that for Mark Robinson and Patrick out in the field. They are the ones that can give us the ground verification if they see anything. And if they do, and they're professionals, they will tweet about it, they'll let us know, they'll let ECCC know, and so on. So that's just a little blurb there on kind of what we're looking at today. There's a reason we highlighted ourselves. This is our own forecast from the Weather Network that severe likely is going to be in that red area. Kingston, Ottawa, the whole area. A lot of people outside camping, you know, maybe they're doing a kayak out in the river. There's a lot. This is the time of year where people are vulnerable. They're outside. So get the message to loved ones. It's not a guarantee, as Kim said. There's never a guarantee that we're going to see a tornado, but conditions are favorable for it today. So let someone know. If you know someone and you can get to them via text, maybe, just let them know, hey, you know, be on guard. Keep your Weather Network app with you at all times, because you'll get that tornado warning in real time on your app. So if you have self-service, you can be safe. You can get to shelter. So north of Ottawa, I just want to show this again, because this is why, again, you can see where the storms are. Well, maybe you can't. You're saying, Jacqueline, what am I looking at? I know what I'm looking at, but okay, this is a bunch of lightning. Those are where the cluster of storms are. There's another storm. There's another storm. Over here is where the most thunderstorm energy is existing right now. So as these move into this environment, that's when we really got to watch for these storms to strengthen and potentially maybe even rotate. But that's called like our storm energy. So I'm watching that very closely. I'm always glued to the satellite. I'm sure Mark Robinson is out in the field as well. And let's just go to the regular radar again. And I'll just kind of show you basically a look at where these storms are once again. So, you know, we've got one through Bancroft. I think that's where Mark Robinson's cottage is, actually. I think he was just mentioning there's one going over his cottage. There's that big cluster of storms. And Kim, I'd be shocked if we get a tornado warning specifically on this. I would think that we're going to watch for some of these more isolated storms ahead of this main batch. But you never know. Like I said, the atmosphere is always changing and in flux. So we'll keep a close eye on it. Another look at the storms elsewhere. We've got a big cluster of storms working its way through, I would say, whoops, not Midland, but Parry Sound, definitely. Let me get rid of that. There we go. Parry Sound, let's just zoom right in on that. So, you know, Mactier, it's just sort of knocking on your doorstep, Honey Harbor, all those areas. Huntsville, you're probably just getting some light rain right now. And I'm just looking to see if we have any questions for any of our viewers. I think, let's see here. Ottawa region, we knew early in the day. This is a quote, Kim. This is interesting. I guess someone that's watching us said, Ottawa region, we knew early in the day there would be a tornado possible. A tornado formed, sure enough. That's true, right? We know when that environment is favorable for storms. It's not a guarantee, but when that happened that day in Barrhaven, I wasn't shocked. I'm sure a lot of forecasters weren't shocked because the parameters were in place.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, as long as you know that we have at least 2-3 ingredients, it's enough to say there's the possibility of tornado. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that, as you were saying earlier. Sometimes it just pops up. Just showing some images out of Bancroft. Strong storms strike eastern Ontario is the headline, as we know. Some very dark clouds starting to build in Bancroft, one of the areas that has been under the tornado watch. And our storm hunter, Mark Robinson, is on the hunt for these storms, and he's in Renfrew, which is in the Ottawa Valley, just north of Ottawa. Pretty dark sky behind you there, Mark. Not sure if you're listening to me right now and just looking at the radar. I feel like you do that, so I'm hoping that that's what's happening right now. Tell me what your plan is, Mark. What are you seeing?
Music.
All right. He's hearing music. All right, well, there's our storm hunter, Mark Robinson. We will get to him in a moment as soon as we have a good connection, but that's where he is in Renfrew, Ontario right now, which is just north of Ottawa, through the Ottawa Valley, and is in one of the areas that is under that tornado watch right now. No tornado warnings at the moment. Things could change, of course. We're starting to see all of these storms bubbling up. I heard near Chalk River, it's nonstop thunder. In places, obviously, nonstop lightning and heavy downpours on these storms as well. So regardless if you see rotation, there's going to be strong winds with these, some heavy rain as well, and the possibility of loony-sized hail up towards golf ball-sized hail at the largest. That's what we're anticipating. So there's the area. Here's the cold front. This is the setup, this cold front coming in. And again, areas around eastern Ontario, western Quebec, along the Ottawa River, that's where we're looking at the best chance of seeing rotation, although it's not the only spot in Ontario that could see severe weather, as we know. So we've got a lot of energy. That's what this is showing. When we get into these darker reds, that's Cape shape, and it's the convective available potential energy. And when we have this, it looks like there's the possibility of tornadoes. So I think we have our storm hunter now, Mark Robinson. It's always technology that gets us first before the storms do. Mark, tell us a little bit about what's going on. You're in Renfrew, and you've got a really decent backdrop behind you.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of knew that you probably caught me just sort of looking at my phone here. Now, what we're looking at behind me right now is that first initial line of storms that's beginning to come towards the Renfrew area. On the way over here, I can just feel the humidity of going up. I could feel the heat going up. But right here is sort of where everything's sort of balanced to produce potential for tornadoes. And this line back here, you can sort of see behind me right now, that is where those tornadoes may show up. Now, this is just sort of the first line of storms. There may be multiple lines of storms as we sort of go through the night. So I'm going to be following these storms towards the south, down towards the Ottawa region, as this whole line of storms begins to push towards Ottawa. Because as we've been talking about, Ottawa definitely in that area where we are concerned about some very strong storms. Kim?
Yeah, it seems to be that you're in the perfect spot, that we could see these big storms, but it's covering such a wide area. And I know with this kind of thing, Mark, it's hard to know exactly the right place to be when these storms pop up. There are a few things that we're concerned about with these. Obviously, rotation being number one, but toonie to nickel-sized hail, heavy amounts of rain, the strong winds, and this isn't a spot where people are probably a little wary right now after all of the warnings they've had of late.
Yeah, definitely, there's a little bit of sensitivity in and around the Ottawa region because of the storms down in Barrhaven. I know that one of my friends lives in Barrhaven. He's already called me and sort of asked me, are we in for it again? And so that, like everybody in this area is definitely keeping an eye. And I've actually had a couple of people drive past me and ask me, what are you doing here? I had to sort of explain, yes, we are potentially looking at some of those severe storms moving towards us. Now, what is interesting is a couple of severe cells down near Peterborough. I personally wasn't expecting those in that area. I actually started in Peterborough and came out to here. So definitely anywhere along that entire line where that front's coming through, it's definitely lighting up the whole thing. But it's only sort of out here where you've really got that directional shear that will give us those potential for the big supercells.
It looks like you have a safe place to go in case that happens. I don't want you to be caught out driving in one of these storms. That's the thing. I know, and it's happened before. That's one of the worst places to be is driving your car and you can't see a thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big thing for me. I'm going to be trying to keep ahead of the storm so that I'm not in it until I know that there's no rotation, maybe some hail in there, get a few little bonks on the car. But everyone else, probably a good idea that if you do get into those, almost whiteout conditions, the best thing to do, slow down, put your hazards on, and pull off to the side of the road when it's safe. Don't stop in the middle of the road. Do not stop under bridges. Definitely just pull over to the side. You're safest inside your car in strong winds, because even if you did have a tree come down, at least there's a little bit of a metal cage around you. But the best thing to do, though, if you do see that storm coming towards you, just, if you are in here, just wait for it to pass and then go. Don't try to drive through these ones because, as you were saying, Kim, there is the potential for, toonie-sized hail. That's almost golf balls, and that'll put a few dents on your car if you're not careful.
Yep, it sure can. Okay, thanks, Mark. Great advice. We'll be checking in with you throughout the live stream. Stay safe. As far as rainfall is concerned, that's going to be another issue with these storms. And we're talking about heavy amounts of rain, 30 to 50 millimeters, even more so if you get stuck in one of these big downpours. It's hard to predict exactly how much rain is within a thunderstorm itself, but along the cold front we're going to see rain, and then within the storms it'll be even more intense. The same thing goes with wind, of course. With the front moving through, it's going to be strong winds almost everywhere, but if you get caught in one of these storms, then those winds could potentially be 100+ kilometers per hour. So there's lots to talk about here. Oh, and I just went from the rain. This is the lightning that we're anticipating through the late night hours into the early morning hours. The lightning could still be ongoing. And when we're talking about hail sizes and severity, we said nickel-sized hail, upwards of toonie-sized hail. So there's nickel that's 2.12 centimeters, and that is considered severe. So, I mean, we're not talking about baseball, tennis ball-sized hail in this part of the province, but hail enough to do a little bit of damage, especially for those soft crops, Jacqueline. You know, I'm thinking about in the Niagara region how we have peaches and strawberries and that kind of thing, and hail of any sort is not great. Grapes, of course, grapes.
Grapes,
number one.
Our wine industry, Kim. That's right.
Oh no.
Oh no, exactly. It's true though. It's on a serious note. It can be very destructive, no question. And thank goodness we don't get the large hail that we get out in the prairies in Ontario, but they certainly deal with it in the prairies. Now I want to talk a little bit. You had mentioned the wind gusts, Kim. We have actually got a report on social media, or someone that's joining us on the stream. I'm not exactly sure, but see the cell that's basically in Beaverton. Or just sort of past Beaverton, that cell apparently has knocked down several trees in the area with some strong wind gusts in the last half hour. So we appreciate that update. So it's this one right here that would have moved just east of Lake Simcoe. So maybe, you know, just the storm is now past you. Likely now it's going to be kind of moving east. But yeah, over Lake Simcoe, definitely some strong winds, which says to me this batch of storms, you know, west of Lindsay and Bob Cajun, get ready for it as it gets closer to you. At the very least, some heavy downpours with that is possible in that area. Okay, let's go back to visit those blips. If you were with me about 5 minutes ago, I was watching these little blips on radar. Look at how much they've grown, right? In the last scan, the last few times that the radar has picked up on those storms, those returns. So now we've got 3 distinct cells here. They're still growing, they're still building, but watching those ones, of course. And then what we're really watching is stuff kind of closer to this area as it moves into this area, because that is where the abundant wind shear is present. So right around the Ottawa Valley area, Arnprior, you know, Buckingham, Carleton Place, where we saw the tornado, the EF1 tornado, only, 3 weeks ago? I think it was July 13th in Barrhaven. Could we see a repeat of a day like that? We're going to make sure that we're with you every step of the way in case. You know, people probably still dealing with cleanup and, you know, the neighborhood that was hit. That was just an intense day, and actually seeing debris on that tornado was something to see. Maybe we have video of that we could play today. If my producer has that, let me know, and I'd love to show that for viewers. Let's go back and just talk about the big picture as well here in Eastern Ontario. We've got a batch of storms being triggered by a very broad low pressure system. That's the big picture. Out ahead of the cold front, kind of have a cold front probably draped something like so. This is the unstable area. This is the area that we're watching for tornadoes. Let's put those, pardon me, watches and warnings on. You can see that red. Those are severe thunderstorm warnings associated to these storms right here. This is the tornado watch in this rust color, I think is what Kim called it. I think it is a good rust. Hey, we're going to be into fall soon. Let's call it a rust color. Get us into that spirit. A couple isolated storm cells here in the severe thunderstorm watch, which is in yellow. So we're watching it all carefully. I'm going to go back to a couple other graphics, a couple other maps here. There's the tornado watch just on its own. So if you live in this area, this means it's not a guarantee that a tornado is going to occur. It means the atmosphere is primed to have tornadoes happen today. It's possible. If I go to the model and show you what the weather models are actually showing for the day, well, I'm just going to roll this back to about local time. So I'm going to go right here. Local time is about 4:30 Eastern. So there we go. Let's see if the model is doing a pretty decent job on picking up on a lot of this activity that is in Ontario. But notice this particular model has a very sizable storm right over Ottawa by 5 p.m. That's a half hour from now. We will watch to see if this unfolds. These models give us an indication. These are what we call mesoscale models or short-range models, and they're giving us an idea of where these storms potentially could be firing. You can see now we're at 9 or 10 p.m., still dealing with an active line of thunderstorms. Usually the rotation diminishes after dark, and we don't usually see a lot in the way of nocturnal events, tornado events. But while the sun is up, we are going to be watching this very carefully. Of course, Mark Robinson is a pro. He's out there. He will be our eyes on the ground, as will Patrick. who I have covered hurricanes with countless times, and you've got two pros looking out for all of us viewers out in the field. So there we go. We talked about the potential for thunderstorm energy. Kim has shown that. That's the bullseye. So we just got to really, Kim, at this point, watch what these storms do. We're kind of in that hurry up and wait. We know that there's some storms that are certainly creating some strong wind gusts east of Lake Simcoe. Oh, you know what I meant to do, Kim? Well, we're both here together. Somebody asked, where in Ottawa will it be the worst? Well, I know, Kim, and you know that it's hard to isolate exactly what part of the Ottawa metro area would be at its worst, but as we just saw from the models, around 5 p.m., it's possible in the next half hour to an hour that we have a batch of storms moving through the Ottawa metro. That's about as granular as we can get, right, Kim?
Yes, it's hard to get real specific with these storms, but obviously they're widespread, and which one is going to be the most severe is hard to predict, but right now all we can tell people is to be prepared. Be prepared for the worst, hope for the best. That means being prepared for possible power outages. Make sure that anything you're concerned about flying around outside, you might want to bring it in. If there's time now, do it. I just want to show you some video that we have of the storms that have been rolling across through the afternoon hours. Manny, if we can show those. I think it's in Sudbury. We'll begin there. Look at this sky over Sudbury. Wow. Cooper Levesque showing us the scene, getting some lightning strikes in there as well. And be careful out there. You know, any storm that contains lightning can be very dangerous, whether it's a severe thunderstorm or not. Castleman showing the bird trying to get out of there as the skies darken. And here's some more. This is out of Bancroft. We were showing Bancroft earlier. Bancroft, a popular area. People have cottages up through the Bancroft region, and that is a very ominous looking sky. So these are the kinds of skies you want to get indoors as soon as you see them. We've got a lot of energy in the atmosphere. That's what this map shows. When we get into these reds, that's the color we're looking for when it comes to the possibility of rotation and then supercells. So those are circled here, one in eastern Ontario and the other one a little bit closer to the shores of Lake Huron as we get into those later hours tonight, although we have already seen some of those storms popping up around the Orillia area, and as Jacqueline was mentioning, there has been some wind damage. So whether or not those winds are rotating, they can still cause a lot of damage. So once they pick up and you get winds 100+ kilometers per hour, they may be straight line winds, and we've talked a lot about straight line winds on the Weather Network. The only difference is they're not in a circle. They're not rotating, but they can cause the same amount of damage. And then we've got the heavy rainfall. So this is why you don't want to be driving in this. I mean, heavy rainfall without everything else can be extremely dangerous. I know I sound like everybody's mom, but once that rain starts coming down, it's like a snowstorm. Are you laughing, Jacqueline? You can't see anything. I was driving in a rainstorm the other day, and people were starting to pull over and everybody was putting on their four-ways because in a matter of seconds you couldn't see, and then in a couple of minutes it was all over. So it was very quick, thankfully, a quick downpour, but it was a reminder to me and just how dangerous it can be. And then we get the pooling on the roads, Jacqueline, too, and then we're talking about hydroplaning. So there's a lot going on with these storms. I think by the beginning of August, we're all pretty familiar with how severe thunderstorms act, and hopefully, even if you haven't had, a big one roll through yet where you are, you know what to do in case it happens.
That's so true, right? And then all of a sudden we have to just rejig our brains to think about hurricane season and then winter weather and fall storms. And that's why our job is so exciting, right, Kim? Because we always get to be on our toes.
That's right. And it's always changing, and we have an entire country to talk about. So, yes, never a dull moment for sure.
You can't complain about that. And don't feel bad about being our mom, because you need to be our mom because we need to make sure people are safe. And I'm a mom too. So yeah, it's important. I'm going to get into the radar, Kim, because we actually see a couple new, I was calling them blips earlier on radar, but we are. And these are the ones, this is the batch of storms, I think, that is probably going to be our big player into Ottawa in the next hour. So if I just sort of, you can see the lightning on it, look near Pembroke. So this is what we call, and our own meteorologist, Rachel Modestino, behind the scenes gave me a little nudge with this, and it's a great point. We've got this line of storms, right? It's very linear. It's a very long-looking storm. It's not like a little isolated storm. The risk with this is that we could see some very strong winds out ahead of this. So down, sort of like a downdraft, a very strong cold wind. But also, we have to watch for embedded rotation. You can see these little notchy areas. I know I've highlighted, if you've seen me on air before, you know I'm always doing this, but these are the little areas that can produce a bit of rotation. Sometimes with a line of storms, Kim was talking about straight line winds, you could have a little bit of rotation on the ends. We call that a bookend vortice. I don't suspect that this is all happening with this line, but these are the things that we can watch for this. If you live in Pembroke, you're probably getting some pretty strong winds, I would think, and some heavy rain. So that's just, I'm just kind of highlighting that little chunk of the radar. But the area that we want to watch for are kind of like these storms, as they move sort of eastward. And by the way, looking at the overall storm motion of our storms today, I would suspect they would be running at about 40 kilometers an hour from what I'm getting from the overall upper level flow. So what we do is we look at the jet stream and how fast it's moving, and we kind of calculate how fast the storms would be at the surface. So some days are faster than others. You know, sometimes they're crawling at a snail's pace, and that's when you get flash flooding and those kinds of things. So these are relatively decent moving storms, and you can see they are moving almost due east as I run that out and get that closer to Ottawa. So we're just watching. When I look at this, immediately I think about the tornado threat being a little, I'm not saying this is a guarantee, this is just my analysis. Tornado threat might be a little less with this cluster of storms because it's a big cluster. What I'm most concerned about right now, and I'm sure our team is watching too very closely, it's not just me, is this cell, these updrafts here. We'll watch for all of these and see if any of those start to rotate. That's my guess. But I've been wrong many times before. So we will watch this closely. And that's the biggest thing. You just got to kind of watch what these storms are doing, and you just stay with them and watch every move they make. And that's fascinating to me as a weather geek, but I think it's fascinating to a lot of people. That storm that brought the strong winds, Kim, east of Lake Simcoe and Beaverton, look at that. It pulsed right back up. We've now got probably a hail core on that storm. I wonder if I have the ability, stay with me, friends. I'm going to go to the Toronto radar. Okay, yeah. So now you can see this is a different, more zoomed, closer radar to this location. That's likely indicating a pretty sizable hail core potentially there. So if you live in that area northwest of Lindsay, I'd love to hear if you see any hail. Let us know. It would help us to be able to tell our story here at the Weather Network. So do let me know. Okay, a lot of clicking going on here. Let's see. Let's go back to the radar. Yes. Okay, there we go. Back in business. So there we go. That's all the action is in basically, you can see the U.S. Northeast along the eastern seaboard, Ottawa, and I'm clicking on a million things. There we go. So there we go. We can see those storm cells, those isolated storm cells on this view of the Ottawa local radar. This gives us a much more granular approach. So you can see these a little better, that they're, disregard these little spiky things. Those are nothing. It's called clutter. But I want to highlight the storms. They're all moving this way. So, you know, as they get into this more sheared environment, what will they do? Will they start to rotate? Will we get a tornado warning? Still to be determined. We will, of course, keep you posted on all of this as we go on. Kim, I'll throw it back into you. And I guess we do have video, Kim. Sorry, juggling things. We have video of the Barrhaven tornado, which of course was July 13th, right? It was only a few weeks ago. Maybe we should show that to our viewers, just as a reminder of what we have seen.
Yes, and I'm going to bring up Mark in just a moment because we have his microphone working much better now. But yes, Barrhaven was the spot that was hit hard just a couple of weeks ago and is fresh in the minds of people who live in that community. And this is the same area, again, that's under the tornado watch, which is a real concern, especially if people just went through the kind of damage that happened in Barrhaven. We've got Mark Robinson. It's only been a short time since we've spoken to him last, and already those skies are looking worse, Mark. So you're still in the same spot. You're still in Renfrew, which is north of Ottawa, in the Ottawa Valley, and it looks like you're in a good spot to see something happen.
Yeah, see, all the technical issues. This is why I need Jacqueline with me. I miss her very, very much, and hopefully she can hear that. But Kim, I'm going to take you back behind me right here. You can kind of see the core of the storm. Now, there's multiple storms here. So this one right here, building a bit of a core, maybe a little bit, like if you look sort of over, sort of almost where I'm standing there, it's a little hard to see right there. But that looks like just the inflow area of the storm. And now, if I was to turn the camera this direction, straight over towards the west, I can see a couple of cells popping up. It looks like the storms actually may go around Renfrew because that's where I am, and of course that's where the storms are going to go around, and that's just how it works. But definitely at this point you can really see back in here. Now some of the radar has been pointing out with some of these cells some potentially big hail. My brother is in Bancroft. He's the one who actually sent some of that video from there, and he said he was getting 4 to 5 millimeter hail in Bancroft. These cells are getting a bigger radar presentation than the one in Bancroft, so these ones probably have larger hail or very, very heavy rain in there. I also heard the first few rumbles of thunder from this one. I haven't seen any lightning yet, but I know for a fact, just watching the radar, there's definitely lightning going on there, and it's beginning to move down the Ottawa Valley. And the Ottawa Valley seems to have a bit of an effect on these storms. It can sometimes spin them up just that little bit, and that's what I'll be watching for. Likely going to be moving a little further down towards Ottawa as these cells begin to move in, just because that does look like one of the bigger danger areas. But for now, here in Renfrew, watching this one and watching to see what it does.
So, Mark, we've been talking a lot about Eastern Ontario. It seems that things have shifted a little bit. I mean, we always talk about Tornado Alley in Ontario towards London, Windsor, southwestern Ontario, as you well know. And we still have seen severe weather down that way. But what do you think it is about Eastern Ontario that's making it more of a target for these storms?
It's all about the timing, Kim. It's all about when that cold front comes through. So if the cold front comes through, say, Windsor at 9 a.m. in the morning, you're not going to see much. But that same front, if it's slowly moving across, kick stuff off a little closer to Ottawa. And I think this year just happens to be the timing of a lot of these fronts have been in Eastern Ontario as opposed to Southwestern Ontario. That may change as we get into August. I think at this point it's just a bit of luck that we've seen them a little bit more in the east this year. But that often happens, just how it works.
Yeah, makes sense. I don't think a lot of people know, or maybe they do, that daytime heating is one of the ingredients when it comes to severe weather. And if you're in the afternoon at the warmest part of the day and something's happening, something's coming through, then you're more likely to get the storm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that you need that maximum amount of heating to really get the storms to kick off and get going at their maximum. You could have storms coming through in the morning. If there's good heat, even then, you can get them then. But really, your best chance, and it's all about probabilities, your best chance is to have that maximum heating, and that's what happens to be once you get that trigger pushing through. Just happens to be in this area, and I'm just watching this storm, and I can actually see, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but I can actually see just over the hills there, a little bit of a lowering on that cell, which is telling me that this storm is beginning to tap into that surface moisture, so that maximum heating, maximum moisture all along the surface, and that's what I'm watching back there. Oh, I just saw an anvil crawler. That was cool. So yes, this one's starting to get going, getting a little feisty there.
Okay. Well, let us know when we should be coming back to you, and stay safe. Mark Robinson, our storm hunter in Renfrew, Ontario, in the Ottawa Valley, just outside of a plaza there. Hopefully those people aren't going to walk out with their bags full of groceries at the exact wrong time, but we're looking at this radar, and there is a lot going on, and this is all along that front that's moving through. So yes, we're talking about a cold front entering into this atmosphere that is pretty juicy, has a lot of energy, and it is what's responsible for firing off these storms in both Ontario and Quebec, and in places that are very popular for cottage goers this time of year. It's the beginning of August. We are on the doorstep of a long weekend, so that's one thing we have to be aware of. The good news is once this front goes through, things start to improve for the weekend, but it's going to take a minute before that happens. And I don't want to rule out the fact that, it's a Thursday and a lot of people may still be doing their traveling today. Some people trying to get a head start on the long weekend. And again, with the potential for supercells, you're not going to want to be A, in a tent, B, driving, and certainly not outside if you can help it, because obviously these storms are packing a punch. We've had heavy rainfall, we've had damaging winds as well with these storms, and we've had some pretty decent sized hail, as Mark was just alluding to. So a lot going on right now in Peterborough. The cell has produced golf ball sized hail, so just keep that in mind. That storm is big. Peterborough, obviously a fairly large town, and people there would be feeling the impact right now of that particular storm. And I know, Jacqueline, you've been looking at all these cells and saying, okay, these ones, the ones that are sneaky, the ones that are just popping up here and there are the ones that we're concerned about.
That's right. They're always a little sneaky, right? I agree. East of Pembroke, Kim, I want to get right into the radar because we're actually seeing a little bit of broad rotation in this area just east of Pembroke toward Westmeath. There is no tornado warning, nothing to panic about, but just watching that area. We were talking about the potential of embedded rotation sometimes with these lines of storms. So it would be kind of where this little notchy area is. So just east of Pembroke, if you live in Fort Coulonge, Beachburg, this storm is on the way to you. And we already know that these storms have a history of producing winds up to, nearly 100 kilometers an hour, not to mention the hail. So that's the one thing I wanted to hit on. And then the other thing is, let's go down to that Peterborough storm. Thank you to our own meteorologist, Rachel Modestino, who's such a big help behind the scenes, because she said, Jacqueline, show this hail parameter. And so I'm going to show it right now, because I was showing this and we were looking at the reflectivity and we said, oh yeah, for sure, that's a maxed out storm in terms of rain or hail. Well, we have a specific hail composite product, and that verifies that, yes, indeed, golf ball, I can't look at this and say the size, but we know that we've had reports of golf ball size hail. So no question. I mean, it's just maxed right out. Look at this, right over in this, up here where the legend is, we're more than halfway. So it's definitely putting down some large hail, and you can also get a pretty good view of this on our more local radar. And boy, does this have an interesting look to this storm right now. As I look at this, boy, it really does simply have this notchy look, which quite honestly, the environment is far more favorable for tornadoes east of here. But boy, that does look suspect. When I see that, it looks like what we call a hook echo. So watching this one very closely, see if we can go to the velocity. Can I do that on this? Let's see, give me a minute here, guys. I am just, I don't think that's going to work for me. Okay, either way, we are looking at this very closely. This Toronto radar really puts that in a nice defined way. We've got the hail core right here, and we've got this notchy area. That looks suspect. So, okay, without a tornado warning on this storm, and there isn't, just, make sure you're in a safe spot if you're in the Lindsay area, because looking at that, it does have a suspect look. I'm just going to go to my other radar. The latest scan looks a little less hooky, so that's good news. So maybe this is not going to be starting to rotate, but I'm looking at literally 3 different radars in my hand, on my phone, on live TV. But let's go back to you can see, depending on what radar, it can look a lot more sort of flattened, or it can be a bit more defined. But that one just caught my eye there. But the truth is that the favorable environment is more in this area. And, excuse me, I've got that wrong, is in this area, closer to the Ottawa area. So we'll watch each one of these storm cells as they push a little bit further east. I would say they're moving kind of east-northeast right now. All of this making their way to Brockville, Cornwall, Ottawa. How strong they will be by the time they get there is hard to say. Now, I want to go to the lightning strikes because, a lot of lightning on these storms, upwards to several hundreds of lightning strikes just on that Peterborough storm. That basically it just getting some updates here from our team at the Weather Network. It just dumped its core right over this area. What this means is that it is hailing, it is raining, and it may start to actually weaken out. And it looks like it may have, because it probably just dumped all of its heaviest precipitation. We call it a core dump. It's actually what we call it. And yeah, it's likely going to start kind of weakening out because a lot of that rain has fallen out, the precipitation, and the cold air is coming out of the thunderstorm, hitting the surface, rather than the warm air winning and creating a stronger thunderstorm. So we'll move on. We'll watch another one, but lots to watch on the radar right now. This is where it really gets interesting, Kim, because these storms are getting closer to that environment where we were watching for the potential for rotation. And hopefully that doesn't happen, right? And hopefully we don't have to worry about any tornado warnings today.
Yeah, and it's funny how they can start to make the move and then, nope, something happens and things change. And that's why it's so difficult to predict exactly where a tornado might happen. But we know where these storms are happening. We can certainly see it with our radar. And when we're talking about warnings, the warnings happen right before, say, a thunderstorm hits, so it's happening or is imminent. And when you get that warning alert, you know it's time to get in. The watch gives you more time. The watch is more like, okay, now is the time to get prepared for some possible severe weather. And with these storms, as we were talking about, large hail, heavy downpours, strong wind enough to cause damage, and a lot of lightning. And lightning is dangerous in any storm, whether it is severe or not, and it is the most deadly part of a severe thunderstorm or of a thunderstorm in general. So let's take a look at lightning in Canada.
Core of the storm. A lot of the lightning. Jeez! That was close. Wow, that is why you stay in the car.
On average, each year in Canada, there are between 2 and 3 lightning-related deaths and 180 lightning-related injuries. The numbers have dramatically improved over the last few decades, with Canadians better understanding lightning and practicing safety. You've heard us say this before. When thunder roars, go indoors. It's saving lives. This is Health and Weather Extended, and today we are going to talk about lightning strikes. It's incredibly rare for lightning to directly strike a person. However, lightning happens and travels fast. Dr. David Sills, Executive Director of the Northern Tornadoes Project, explains how ground currents and side flashes can cause injury.
So with the ground current, the lightning hits the ground, and if the person is nearby, then the current travels along the ground, then into the victim. Usually, if that distance is only about 10 meters, that can cause a fatality. If it's even 15 to 30 meters away from the place where the lightning struck, that can cause an injury. So you don't have to be right next to the lightning to get injured. It can be quite a distance away. The other type of lightning strike for a person is with a side flash, and that's when lightning hits a tall object and then partway down to the ground, it arcs over to the person standing nearby, and the current goes through them. So that can result in injuries or fatalities.
Lightning can be incredibly dangerous, reaching temperatures of 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. To put this into perspective, the surface of the sun is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That means lightning is 5 times hotter than the sun. And that's why you never want to find yourself in a scenario like this. Let's say you witness someone fall to the ground after experiencing that strike. Here's how you would need to react.
Be sure to assess your own level of risk. What may be the case that if you're in that same environment where somebody else has just sustained an injury of that nature, although it's very, very slim, we want to reduce the chance that anyone else, like a potential rescuer or a layperson rescuer, is going to become the next patient. But for sure, while this is occurring, phone 911 immediately, or have someone else phone 911 and report back to you after 911 has been phoned. And if it's safe to do so, of course, approaching the patient and assessing them as quickly as possible is very, very important. Whether or not you need to assist them into a recovery position while you're waiting for help, or whether you may need to actually initiate CPR if that person has gone unconscious and they are not breathing.
People who are affected by a lightning strike may develop a rash, and it takes on a pretty interesting shape, almost looking like a strike itself. It's called the Lichtenberg figure. They are known to form when an electrical surge causes blood vessels to burst. These rashes are incredibly rare and usually are not permanent. There are many fascinating elements when it comes to lightning, But the one thing you should always remember is this.
In general, if you can hear thunder, then you should be heading indoors. You should also stay there for 30 minutes after the last rumble of thunder or lightning flash that you see. And that's because people often go back outside too soon and maybe get hit by lightning. It's about 1/3 of lightning casualties are caused by people going out too soon after the storm has gone by.
Keep in mind, if you are out on the water and you see flashes in the distance, get to shore immediately. Water is a great conductor, and if lightning strikes the lake, it can spread quite far. Thanks for tuning in to Health and Weather Extended, the chat about lightning strikes and how to react.
Okay, great. Thanks for the reminder, Rachel Schutzen, for that report. We have a lot of lightning on these storms right now in Ontario. Hi, I'm Kim McDonald, and we have been live streaming from our studios. We have Jacqueline Whittle watching these storms, as well as our storm hunter, Mark Robinson, who is out in the field, and Patrick de Belfoy, who's been out in the field as well. Mark, okay, so you've been in Renfrew. I've heard through the grapevine that you're thinking about moving. Can you tell us why and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, Kim, what you're seeing behind me is the one cell that's beginning to go across the Ottawa River. That one moving into Quebec, but it's the storms over this way, and I can't grab the camera and quickly move it. But those storms moving just a little bit south towards Canada, towards Arnprior. I may be moving down to there just to watch those ones and see what they're going to do. A lot of the storms along this line have been very impressive already, and I want to be down sort of where those storms are going to be the nastiest. That does look like it's going to be a little bit south here. It does look like the storms are going around Renfrew. So basically where I am, they've decided to go around me. So that is often what happens. And so you got to move a little bit. But definitely this one here, the storm that is moving again down sort of the Ottawa River towards Ottawa, but I think it's going to be a little bit more into Gatineau. That's definitely a storm to watch. And actually I'm getting that little bit of rain between those two cells, that cell and that cell. It's actually starting to begin a rain on me. And yes, I did bring my raincoat.
Of course you did. I know you're prepared. And yes, a storm hunter and a storm chaser can't always land the storm, Mark, but that's okay. I know you're going to get into the right spot, and as long as you're safe, that's all I care about. And thanks for the info. Yeah, so Mark's going to try to get close to those next cells, but I mean, look at this mess. And some of these storms, the ones that went just around the Kawarthas through the Peterborough area, had a lot of lightning on them and some large hail as well. That's what people have been talking about. So these storms are impactful. Whether or not they are tornado warned is irrelevant when it comes to the severity of some of these storms. Obviously, nobody wants a tornado, and that seems to be worst case scenario, but these storms can pack a punch. And if you were under that severe thunderstorm warning, you know that already because they were bringing significant amounts of rain and wind. The saving grace is that these storms seem to be moving fairly quickly when they bubble up and go through an area, but they're packing a punch. It's like one swift hit and then they're done. But a lot can happen when that goes on, Jacqueline. When we see these storms roll through, they bubble up quickly. But some, you know, I mean, if you're not prepared now, then it may be a problem afterward.
That's right. And I'd rather over-prepare everyone than under-prepare, right? So, you know, maybe we don't see a tornado today. Maybe we don't see one single tornado warning. Still better to be prepared for this just in case, rather than be caught off guard when, you know, someone's out in their backyard having a barbecue and a rotating supercell's coming their way. That's the way I look at it. So yeah, and as a storm chaser, if I had a nickel for every blue sky day bust we've had where you get out there and you think you're going to see lots and you're sitting around doing a whole lot of nothing. So let's go to the satellite here. I want to show you this. It's beautiful. I mean, if you're a weather geek like me, you probably think this is beautiful. But what you can see is on the edge of that satellite here, you can see the updrafts, the clouds from space. And those clouds, some of which could be as high as 50, 60,000 feet into the atmosphere. So very strong storms. We've talked a lot about the storms through the area of Peterborough today and the hail. let's go back to that. And I also want to talk to Parry Sound in a minute, because you also have been seeing a big line of storms. This Peterborough storm, which is, I'm calling it the Peterborough storm because it's near Peterborough, but it's actually directly over Lindsay currently. And this was the same storm that was over Beaverton and eastern parts of Lake Simcoe, about an hour or so ago, and they actually reported some wind damage. I imagine we're going to hear about some hail reports near Fenelon Falls and Lindsay, if you know that area. A lot of cottagers out there in that area, so be severe weather aware today. Make sure you have your smartphone app, your Weather Network app in your hand, so you can make sure you get any severe thunderstorm warnings or worse, tornado warnings. So that storm is severe warned. You can see the red behind it. That's the severe thunderstorm warning in and around Lindsay. So we are expecting very strong winds, almost at 100 kilometers an hour, and the potential for hail. Let's go back, speaking of winds, let's go back over to Parry Sound. Okay, so in cottage country, we are looking at kind of a line of storms forming what we call a bow, kind of like a bow and arrow. And out ahead of this, if you live in this area, let's see, what communities are in that, well, between Mactier and Parry Sound, I think that's like Honey Harbor area, if I recall. Yeah, so Bala, even moving into Huntsville, you could see what we call a shelf cloud out ahead of this. That means that you could see a visual that looks kind of like a big wall, or almost like a shelf. And what that usually means too is some strong damaging winds. And we know, of course, Kim, that cottage country is so very heavily treed in this area, not to mention there's a whole lot of cottagers up in this area as we get closer to the Civic Day holiday weekend. So heads up, strong winds, heavy rain through Parry Sound, through parts of cottage country. Going to go back to the radar and highlight Ottawa, though, who is under the tornado watch. And let's not forget that it was only just over 2 weeks ago that we had an EF1 tornado in Barrhaven, Ontario. We've got visuals of that. Let's show that, if we could, to my producer, because, I mean, this was such a scary day. Look at the debris that was being lofted into the atmosphere by that tornado, which doesn't look like a traditional tornado in that shot, but it is a tornado. That's the condensation cloud rotating very fast, very strong winds, kicking up everything from roof shingles. You can see the damage here, maybe siding, whatever that debris was. This is the damage that it left behind. Trees down, and there we go. A beautiful looking tornado, not a beautiful result to that tornado. And that was on July 13th. Environment Canada rated that an EF1 tornado. And so the tornadic threat is still there today. So that's why we're taking this seriously, right? Because you should at all times. But yeah, we just had the Barrhaven tornado happen, and I'm sure people that live there are certainly taking this seriously. So looking at the radar here, not a lot's changed since we've met last. Let's go to, let me go back to, yeah, I am on the right radar. So I think Mark is, I think maybe Kim could verify this, might be headed toward Arnprior, I think, but he's going to reposition from the area that he's in. And I would suspect, Kim, that he is probably going to be looking at those storms that are in and around Arnprior, maybe this bunch of storms, maybe even this one here, that are probably heading kind of east-northeast. And by the way, the actual storm motion, Kim, is about 50 kilometers an hour. I think I had said 40 earlier. Environment Canada has actually verified that, yes, this is moving at about 50 kilometers an hour. And some people are saying, wow, that's so fast. It's actually not terribly fast. It's about mid-range. Sometimes you can have a storm that is moving at, just a crawl, like at 10 or 15 kilometers an hour, and putting down a whole lot of rain can cause flash flooding. Then, I mean, as you and I know, in Dixie Alley in the deep south of the U.S., sometimes those storms can be racing at 60, 65 kilometers an hour. So, 40 to 50, I guess it's on the upper end, but it's not as fast as we've seen storms move.
Yeah, it's a reminder, though, you need to get inside, because you think, oh, that storm's way in the distance, it won't hit me for a minute, and then all of a sudden it's on top of you, and then you're not ready. And I've heard that several times this summer already, where people are like, wow, gee, I had to run into my house last second because it looked like it was far away, but it was moving so quickly. And as you say, when they're slow moving, that can be disastrous too, because they can dump rain and not move, and then now you're talking about flooding. But that won't be the case with these storms. There'll be heavy rain, but not like that. So tell me a little bit about Parry Sound. I know people are talking about Parry Sound online right now, and the storm that's starting to really blow up in that area.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. Let's go to the radar here. You can see right in Georgian Bay here, this is a very popular area, Kim, as we know, for cottagers. And we've got the potential for strong winds likely moving into areas like Mactier, Bala, maybe Bracebridge within the next half hour. There we go. That's the line of storms there. And right now it's over Parry Sound, but because these are so fast moving, we just got an earlier scan there, just updated itself. Basically, sorry, I'm just looking at a couple things. Basically, that line of storms is sort of moving this direction. I'll just play it for you. So Mactier, this is all headed your way. Huntsville, Bala, Bracebridge, right up and down Highway 11, basically. And a lot of people are probably sitting on their dock right now, right? And they're not thinking severe weather. That's where I'd want to be, is on my dock. But trust me, you don't want to be there. You want to get inside because you have a very strong storm that's coming your way rather quickly. So, you might, maybe if you're in Midland, you're saying, what storm? It won't take long before all of this is knocking on your doorstep. And a very strong winds with this storm for sure. North Bay, you're in the clear. Huntsville, you're into some light rain currently, but the stronger storm is back to your west. Let's go check in on that Lindsay storm. Looks to be kind of rebuilding a bit of a core. So it might be maintaining itself, because earlier we saw what we were coining as a core dump. That's what storm chasers call it. It's when all the rain and all the hail just comes crashing out of the thunderstorm, and then it starts to weaken a little bit. But it actually looks like it could be intensifying again. So that storm motion, again, moving at about 50 kilometers an hour, seems to be kind of going east. So Peterborough, Lakefield, those areas, all expecting heavy rain. Millbrook, Lakefield, all expecting this storm to be headed your way probably within the next 20 minutes or so, maybe less. And then we're looking up here, Gananoque, Brockville, Kingston. This whole line of storms is moving eastward your way. But whether they start to rotate, whether we see any of that, we will just continue to watch the radar. That's really all we can do at this point, is just be here for viewers to, stay with us. And a reminder that it wasn't too long ago, Kim, that it was the Barrhaven Day. And I think that, it's certainly, we want to make sure we're on top of it. Even if it's a bust and no tornado warnings happen today, I will feel better if I know, hey, we've warned viewers, and we appreciate all of you staying with us.
Yeah, of course. And I think people understand more about weather now, too, that a watch doesn't mean it is guaranteed. And if you can have a tornado watch, it's a good thing, because it means, okay, people have, heads up. They know that there's a possibility of that happening. The ingredients are all there. And it's a big chunk of geography that's under that tornado watch right now, because these storms are all over the place. As we said, this line, this cold front, and they've been bringing, obviously, the hail. We were talking about golf ball sized hail around that Peterborough storm, Lindsay area, a lot of lightning on these storms. That's what the white lines are here. There's that Parry Sound storm that Jacqueline was just pointing out. It is warned. So in the yellow area, we have this severe thunderstorm watch, and much of Ontario and Quebec, central Ontario and all the way into Quebec are under the watch. And then within the watch are the warnings. And the severe thunderstorm warnings, which are in red, are going to come and go as the storms advance. And once they move past, then the warnings are dropped, which is exactly what you want. But you still may stay in that severe thunderstorm watch until the atmosphere really changes and there's no more chance of getting a thunderstorm. But then again, with the tornado watch, both sides of the border, both sides of the Ottawa River, that's the area where we're concerned about. And if a tornado does happen, just a reminder, tornado safety. Be in the lowest room in your home. Maybe that's a basement. If you have a basement, ideal. You want to be away from windows. You want to put as many walls between you and the outdoors. So maybe that's an interior room if you don't have a basement. If you're an apartment building, you might want to get to the bottom floor. You don't want to be looking out the window, sitting on your porch, that kind of thing, when a storm comes in like this. And again, even if it's not tornado warned, the winds may be strong enough to cause damage, enough to cause flying debris, and it's flying debris where people can often get hurt, right? So these are the kinds of storms you just want to be indoors for a number of reasons. Thunderstorms are exciting for a lot of people. People love to chase storms, and hopefully anybody who is a storm chaser just knows enough about them to be on the right side of them. Here's video of some funnel clouds in Napanee. Yeah, this is pretty intense. This was from July the 13th. or Nepean, sorry. This is Nepean in Ontario, Ontario near Ottawa. So this is the storm that was near Barhaven. And this was what the rotating storm looked like in Nepean. So yes, if you're looking up at a sky like this, you're definitely going to be indoors. You can hear that woman saying, "Oh my God," over and over again. And hopefully she put down the camera right after she shot that and got somewhere safe, because that is the kind of storm that can certainly do damage. And we're in this perfect atmosphere where we've got all the ingredients, not a guarantee, but obviously forecasters have been looking at this. One of the triggers will be the cold front, although some of these storms popped up well ahead of the front itself and rolled across just the U.S. border into New York. But there's the cold front. So these storms are going to be ongoing for some into the early morning hours, especially for Quebec. And then we have that supercell potential. So these rotating storms, that's a supercell. And when you start to see those cumulus clouds start to build up, when you look up into the sky and it's blue and then the white keeps going and going and going, you know, okay, well, this is a potential storm developing. Mark Robinson had an eye on some towering cumulus, and so did Patrick a little bit earlier. And when it comes to rainfall, these storms could produce quite a bit of rain. The good news is they're moving very quickly. So the rain will hit and then be out. But if you're behind the wheel of your car, you're going to have trouble, because it could mean that you can't see in these heavy downpours. I've already been through that once this week. It can be scary. And then the lightning, a lot of lightning on these storms, and hail too. So when it comes to tonight, the threat of severe weather diminishes, but it's still here, eastern Ontario, just a little farther south. So again, along the 401, moving up towards Cornwall, south of Ottawa, but still remaining in that risk in Ottawa. And then for Friday, we still have the risk, this time non-severe thunderstorms. That's the potential across much of Ontario. But as we move into the eastern townships on Friday, again, we could have some severe weather there, because this front is not just stopping, it's going to keep on moving through. Looking at our current conditions right now, we do have that thunderstorm in Muskoka. Temperatures have tended to drop as the storm moves through, and certainly behind the cold front. Look at the difference in air. 19 degrees in Sudbury, 19 degrees in Timmins, and then we're looking at temperatures 28 in Toronto, 28 in St. Catharines. So that's behind the cold front, that's ahead of the cold front. Temperatures dropped temporarily in Ottawa and then started to rise again. So this is the kind of afternoon. Now we're getting into the evening hours that we're expected to see. And Friday, again, slight risk of thunderstorms, Toronto, Kingston, Ottawa, but hopefully not the potential for the severe weather we've been seeing today, Jacqueline. Again, no tornado warnings. We've had a tornado watch. We've been watching that, and a whole lot of cells that have been popping up in areas that are very popular this time of year for people to head to the cottage or go camping.
You bet, like Lindsay, Ontario. And look at the shape of this storm right now. I don't want to alarm anybody, because it may just be the look on radar. Sometimes these things take on a kind of a suspect look, but at the very least, we know there's lots of hail within this storm. But what I'm talking about when I say this shape is it's got this sort of notch area, and that's sometimes how a supercellular storm can look. We call it a hook echo, and sometimes they can produce a tornado when they look like that. But I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just watching it very closely. But this storm, as we know, has a history of producing winds up around 90 to 100 kilometers an hour. And of course, golf ball sized hail this afternoon through this area. So there it is. Watch it intensify. I mean, it's no question rebuilding itself a strong core again after it dumped a whole bunch of rain and hail. So that says to me, well, first of all, when I look at that, I'm thinking, why is it re-intensifying? Well, I can tell you why, because it's moving into an area of favorable CAPE. So that's that, oh geez, I've got a bit of a, let me try that again. That's basically like thunderstorm energy that's available. So it's going into a very high area of CAPE, and that's why it's not weakening. If anything, it is strengthening. So that's what's going on there. We know that there's hail. I'm going to try and go back to the radar and show you the hail core on that particular storm cell. There we go. So let me go back. It's just going to take me a minute here. Go there. Yes, there's the storm. It's a little bit more granular there, but watch if I go there. Look at that, max straight out. I would say that's putting out golf balls again, probably maybe maybe ping pong ball sized hail north of Lindsay. So if you live there, heads up, you could be seeing some pretty intense hail. And the potential for rotation is there too, but it's broad rotation at this point. I'm just going back here. I got a question from someone watching on YouTube, and thanks for joining us on YouTube today. Enceladus Object Cosmos says, the Weather Network, my house's basement is full of windows. However, there is an interior room without windows on the second floor of my 3-story house. Would that room be safer than the basement? It's likely that basement, despite the fact that there's windows in it, you're still lower and you're still underground. So we're recommending that if you needed to, you would still go down to that basement in that case. But that's a very great question. And we appreciate you sending the questions in to us here at the Weather Network. There's a look at the satellite just near that Lindsay, Bobcaygeon, Peterborough area. Lots to get into in terms of analysis here. You can see the line of storms clearly. So this is the big show in town. Okay, we've got the front that's probably further west, but there's no activity. Whoops, there's no activity back here. Okay, it's done pretty much. But all of the action is in this area right here. That's the line of storms just south of the nation's capital. So you can see Ottawa, Carleton Place, Smith Falls. These storms are getting closer to you by the minute. I'm going to go back to radar here. There we go. So there's a couple storms. There's one near Arnprior and Calabogie that seem to be, they're pretty weak right now, but they're isolated. So because we know that the wind shear is kind of favorable in there, just got to watch this. Got to watch this one here. We're just going to keep an eye on those. But no question, Kim, the biggest storm in town right now is this one still by Lindsay, Ontario, now rebuilding yet another core, which means probably more in the way of hail potential and more in the way of heavy rain, strong winds. In fact, the lightning, over 500 lightning strikes, Kim, have occurred with that particular storm cell. Super impressive.
I wouldn't have to worry about anybody being inside. As soon as you see that lightning, I know people are going to run. So that's good news,
exactly.
I suppose.
Totally.
And you pointed
out 100%. Yes.
You pointed out Arnprior, which was great because that is where our storm hunter Mark Robinson is. He just landed in Arnprior. He's been around the Ottawa Valley. He was in Renfrew a little bit earlier and now has made his way to Arnprior, where we do have a cell that's developing. And it looks like, things are getting pretty exciting. So let's go to Mark Robinson now. I know that hopefully he can hear me and all is good. There he is. Mark, you look a little tense. Everything okay?
Yeah, because the lightning bolt just hit just over there in the field. So I'm going to have to do this fairly quickly.
Okay.
Because this storm is energizing. It's getting going. But you can actually see where the wall cloud and the spin is actually beginning on this storm right here. So I'm sort of looking right into the rotation of this. I'm going to continue along towards Arnprior. This is a bit of an isolated cell, as Jacqueline was saying. And yeah, it's definitely getting going. And it's right now, the bases are a bit high, but as it begins to sort of starts to spin up into a supercell, you may see those bases lower and really get going. This is the one I've been watching, get itself in gear and beginning to sort of move down and spin up. So, and as I said, it almost hit me with a lightning bolt. So I'm going to jump in the car right now so that I don't get hit.
Yeah, good. All right, there's our storm hunter, Mark Robinson, and looks like the sky is darkening. Obviously, the sun does not set for quite a while yet, but when you see that it's much less bright than it was earlier, know that it's time to get indoors as well. So that is an area that is under the tornado watch. Arnprior, one of the many areas, and currently under a severe thunderstorm warning, I believe. These are the storms happening now, but it's these isolated cells that have been really bringing in the heavy rain. Lots of lightning on that one near Lindsay, as Jacqueline was pointing out, and hail too. So if you weren't thrown indoors because of the lightning, The hail probably got you, and I'm sure it's very loud in some people's homes as that hail comes down. And we'll often see hail on a pool, on a backyard pool. A lot of people capture that because it's just so dramatic looking as it pings off the water, and hopefully not causing any damage, hopefully small enough that it's not going to be problematic, especially for farms in the area. But here's our area again in the watch, all throughout the Ottawa Valley, Ottawa proper, across the border, across the Ottawa River into Quebec and places like Gatineau as well. And there is the line, another look at it. So again, if you're in that severe thunderstorm warning, it means that the storms are happening or are imminent. They're knocking at your door. We were talking about best locations in your home, and thank you for that question about maybe I should be in the second floor because the basement has too many windows. Yes, Jacqueline gave some good advice. Not the case. As low as you can is the best place to be. Usually regardless. So in a basement if you can, in an interior room, a closet maybe, something away from windows. Don't sit on your porch, don't look out the window. There are a lot of things that people think they should be doing during a tornado, and it's not. Like, don't be opening windows and that kind of thing. And remember, flying debris can cause damage and it can cause injuries. So along this front is where we're seeing these storms that are bubbling up and becoming more severe. Again, around the Lindsay, Peterborough area, big storm there. This was just pointing out where we saw supercell potential in the east and towards Lake Huron. And again, our precipitation forecast continuing through the overnight hours into Friday for parts of Quebec, and lots of rain on some of these cells as well. So heavy rain, lightning is a concern, and the hail as well. Jacqueline, Arnprior, do you think that's a good spot for Mark? It looks like he got into a little bit of a dicey situation. I know you've been storm hunting many times with Mark, and you know, I don't think anybody takes lightning lightly.
No, and we have something called, Kim, bolt from the blue. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but us as storm chasers, sometimes you're watching a storm and it's kicking out all kinds of lightning, and you go, okay, the lightning's over there, I'm good, I'm way far away from it. And then sometimes on the anvil of the thunderstorm, so that's that upper level winds that are blown off well ahead of the storm, you can get a lightning bolt like several miles away from the core of a storm, and you call it a bolt from the blue. And I have been near that many times and just about jumped out of my skin and jumped right back in the car. So yeah, lightning can be a very big threat out in the field. This Arnprior cell that Mark is on is actually really picking up in strength at this time. This is probably because it is, Mark has just let us know that it just produced a funnel actually in Arnprior. Thank you for that. Maybe we can go back to Mark. Do we have Mark? I'm having trouble hearing Mark's audio, but maybe Kim can speak with Mark, because if he's seeing something, I don't know if my producer hears me, but anyway, I'll continue to chat. You just cut in if we have Mark. Apparently this is producing a funnel cloud, or it did, at least just did. And that's because we were talking about the wind shear being most favorable in this Ottawa area, right? So maybe these storms are entering in that environment and starting to rotate as models had predicted they might. So we're going to watch this closely. What I can tell you about this Arnprior storm is that it has picked up in strength. So definitely heavy rain, potentially some hail in there. Sounds like we have Mark. Mark, if you can hear me, what have you just seen on this Arnprior cell as this moved into really, and I do hear you, Mark. I can hear your audio, so this is great. What are you seeing? Where are you headed? What direction are you headed?
Jack, I'm actually headed down towards, just passing through Arnprior, headed towards Canada, just so I can sort of come at this one. Yes, it did produce a funnel, very weak little thing. There shouldn't be a tornado warning on this at this point, but it was just a little funnel up there. We often call them shear funnels, and that's what it looked like. But it definitely was in that area that I was a little bit suspicious about. But definitely this cell, if you can see on the camera, I'm driving sort of down the 417 towards Ottawa at this point, and this storm storm still is a little bit high based, and Jack, you and I both know sort of what that means. It means the storm's not really tapping into the surface too well, where that best moisture and heat is. But having said that, it is, I can see it beginning to pulse down just like, or pull down just a little bit, and you can sort of see that on the camera there. Hopefully you can. But yeah, definitely this one started off with just a little bit of showers and has really gotten itself going, moving fairly quickly, so sometimes a little bit hard to keep up with. But this is an isolated cell out in front of the main line, and that usually is the one, you know, as Jack, you know, this is the ones that tend to get a little frisky. Oh, nice bolt.
Yes. Yes, frisky. That is the word. Can you hear me, Mark? Yes, you've got my audio?
I can hear you, Jack.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't hear a lot of what you said, not because I was tuning you out, but because I didn't have your audio. So I'm not going to make you repeat what you just said there, but because viewers don't want to hear it all over again. But anyway, you stay safe. It sounds like you did see a funnel. It sounds like you did see a funnel, so please do be safe. And know that I'm looking at this on radar currently, Mark, and this is certainly picked up in strength in terms of the core of the thunderstorm. We'll come back to Mark momentarily, because although I didn't hear him, I do hear him now, so I would love to have a conversation with Mark. As we know, we have been, there's the Arm-Prior storm that Mark is close to. There's no, tornadic threat right now. There's, what we know though, is that storm is picking up strength. It's isolated, some of the things that I've been watching for all day, and it's moving right into a favorable environment when it comes to wind shear. Let me see if I can, okay, so this is a product that we use. This is a model, and local time is what, 5:30. This is not a guarantee, but notice the rotation indicating, okay, so I guess this is picking up on rotation we have seen throughout the last little while and what we may see as we move ahead. So to be honest, this model is not doing that great of a job, unless most of this rotation is going to be going back to the west, and it's possible. But let's take a look here at a different product that shows us the past hour, the strongest energy. Okay, so the most available energy, right where Arm-Prior is in that bullseye of this dark maroon color. So lots of energy. So that's why it just punched up in terms of precipitation and strength. Whether the rotation is going to be in place to, to possibly get a tornado warning happening, don't know. I honestly don't know. None of us do. We're just going to have to watch. Oh, look at that though. You can see that bullseye there, right there on my screen, of where that, see if I can, yeah, where that energy is. And that's why this storm all of a sudden punched up, and it's really building a core. It could potentially have some hail. Let me go to a different product here to show the hail composite. See if it is producing any hail at this point. No, it does not look like it is. So it's just likely heavy rain, because as we know, the storm earlier, back, let me turn those warnings off, that one was producing hail and continues to likely still be producing hail as of 5:25 with the latest scan. So hail happening in Lindsay. Okay, we've got a wall cloud from Mark Robinson developing on that Arm-Prior cell. I'm just looking at that right now. Let me go back to the radar in Ottawa. Bear with me, folks. Thanks for your patience. Let's go back. So there's the Lindsay cell, a line of storms. There's the Arm-Prior cell. Marcus, I'm seeing it. He's got a photo. Maybe we should take Mark live. Can we get Mark live right now with that wall cloud, just in case? Do we have Mark available? Yes, we do. Okay. So Mark, if you can hear me, I'm seeing your shot right now. You just posted a photo of a developing wall cloud. Firstly, explain to the viewers what a wall cloud is and what you're seeing now and why you're moving.
Jack, yeah, the a wall cloud is sort of the inflow-outflow area of a rotating storm. Now, the reason you're not seeing it is because I'm ahead of the storm. I'm directly in the path. If there's going to be an area of rotation, if there's a tornado to form, it forms underneath the wall cloud. It's like these storms, like all of these kinds of storms, are extremely organized. You can't get a tornado out of anywhere. It actually has to come out of specific parts of the storm. And this one looks like it's producing a bit of a wall cloud. So what I'm going to try and do is come around. I'm just getting off the highway now. And I'm going to turn around, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. So if you just bear with me for just a second, you'll be able to see. Woof! Wow. Okay. Yeah. Jack, give me a second. I'm just going to pull up on top of this bridge.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull off the side of the road here. Just a second.
I see that.
And I'm going to point the camera out the side of the wall, out the side of the. Yeah. So Jack, you can see there, and there we go. So hopefully you can get a chance to see that.
Cool.
Yeah, now, whether or not that's rotating or not, it's tricky to say. Yeah, it's tricky to say. I mean, if there is rotation in there, it's not very fast, and it's pretty high up, so it's pretty high based at this point. But definitely, the part of the storm, it's happening in the area of the storm I would expect. For significant potential if you're going to see it, because if you look over, the core is here, and here's where the inflow. So the air is sort of coming in, going into the storm, sort of up into the updraft, and then dumping out on the side. So if you're going to see something significant, it's likely going to be underneath this part here. So I'm directly in this path, so I may have to move at some point, but it's not rotating so fast that I think I need to start fleeing. It's really super interesting though to see it here.
You're doing a great job, Mark. Stay with Mark, please, to my producer, Manny. Let's just stay with Mark for a minute, because you're doing a great job explaining how a wall cloud works and why they form. And I always remember, Mark, the analogy you came up with, and I use it all the time. You may not even remember it, but you and I were giving a talk one time, and you had talked about, I was standing there at the talk, and I was in a dress, and I had high heels on. And you said that my entire body was basically the thunderstorm, so a 50, 60,000 foot thunderstorm. Yes, I'm seeing that too, Mark. And my high heel would be what could be representative of a tornado, and that's how small of a feature a tornado can be. I see what you're zooming in on. Yes, a little bit of a tendril, some rotation tightening up there on the right side of that wall cloud.
Yeah, it's possible, Jack. I mean, right now it just looks like scud going up. It doesn't look like it's doing too much at this point. But, this is definitely one I'm going to have to stay with. There was a bolt just a few minutes ago. Let's see if I can get my finger like right here. So this one's definitely producing a lot of bolts from the blue, which is why I'm not jumping out of the car and showing you everything, because I really don't want to get struck by lightning. But there you go. There's sort of that inflow area. I think I'm gonna have to check the radar, but definitely, if I'm looking at the grasses and plants, and I'm gonna zoom on. This seems crazy, but there you can see those grasses and plants. The wind is pushing in and towards this part of the storm, which is, again, that sort of dangerous part of the storm. But I want to emphasize at this point, still pretty high based, not doing too much at right now, but since this one began to really build from when I left Arnprior down to where I am now, so I guess I'm just south of Arnprior, this is definitely one I'm going to have to stay with. This is an isolated cell out ahead, and I can go east to keep with it now that I'm getting closer to a little closer to Ottawa.
All good advice. I'm going to stay with you, Mark, because this visual is really looking interesting. And again, this is what Mark and I do. We'll be out in the field and we just pause and we watch. We can look at radar, we can look at models, we can look at satellite all day and night, but then eventually you just stop and you get out of your car and you watch and you see what the storms are actually doing. And how many times, Mark, have we been watching a wall cloud like that and it doesn't produce anything? And you say, well, okay, that's what that was. It's interesting you mentioned the bolt from the blue, because I was just talking to viewers on air about a bolt from the blue and how that can happen several kilometers away from the core of a thunderstorm. You and I have certainly been caught chasing together and been, scared the you-know-what out of us and jumped right back in the car.
Yeah, Jack, you know, half the reason I said bolt from the blue was because I did hear you talking about a bolt from the blue, and that's the one that actually nearly got me earlier today when I was in, I can't remember the town I was in now, Renfrew. When I was in Renfrew, and you're coming to me, and all of a sudden, kabam! Yeah, that one scared me. That, you know, scared the you-know-what out of me because it was so close. So what I'm going to do now, Jack, is actually head towards the east. Now this, as I said, I'm going to stick with it. It's falling apart a little bit, so definitely not. It doesn't have the structure that it had earlier, but this is definitely one I'm going to have to stay with for a little while as it moves towards Ottawa. You know, because if we do have, and speaking of Ottawa chasers, there's one right beside me. Yeah, this one definitely, one to sort of stick with. We'll see how it does, because it's still, what I'm seeing now is it's still just not getting down to the really good air on the ground surface. But this one is, unfortunately, moving towards the town of Dunrobin, and we all know sort of what happened there a few years ago. Not that this one's going to produce anything like that, but I just, that's just to give you an area, give you an idea of where I am. That's the area that I'm in now.
That's exactly what I'm looking at. Just staying on your shot. I'm buried in radar, and I'm looking just north of Marathon Village is where that updraft is. So probably where you're pointing your camera is where that updraft is on radar, and then there's like a little notchy area just east of that, and then Dunrobin is just north and east of that location. So you're right. I remember the Dunrobin tornado day, and this. In terms of this on radar right now, it's holding together. It's certainly not putting out a ton of hail. I don't know if you saw, Mark, earlier in Peterborough, there was golf ball sized hail. It was a very strong storm. This is not really doing the same, but as we've been watching all day, Mark, people might say, big deal, what are we looking at here? Well, the reason we're really watching this storm, and you're where you are, is because we know that the wind shear is favorable in this particular location of Ontario today. So if a storm develops like you're on, it's very possible that it could start rotating.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, Jack. And hopefully you can still hear me.
Yeah,
I know. That's exactly what I'm watching too. I think that might just be what we call scud, which is just little cloud wisps coming up, but I'm not 100% sure because that is exactly where the rotation is. But I'm not seeing that that shape, the smooth sides to it at this point.
Same.
But it's moving upwards fast. I'm going to continue towards that. Definitely continue to.
Okay. Definitely.
Lightning's picking up too.
I think we got. I think we might be losing you a bit, Mark, but we'll stay with you as long as we do have signal. To viewers that are with us right now, I apologize, but yeah, we're pretty. If you're cutting out, but that very well could have been a funnel there on that wall cloud, Mark. It sure looked suspect. Now on the radar, we're not really thinking that. The rotation is that impressive, but sometimes this happens where, radar looks like it's doing one thing and then out in the field it's doing another. And boy, you've got me. I'm glued to the screen right now. So be safe because as we know, those cinnamon swirls above our heads sometimes can happen quickly. So any thoughts?
Yeah, Jack, hopefully you can still hear me. This thing is rotating quite quickly. And the sides are getting a little bit more laminar. I'm getting so close to it, it's going to be hard to see. But if I'm looking now on the ground just to check, yeah, look at that. Okay, hold on, I'm pulling over. Jack, give me a second while I pull over.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, Mark's just going to pull over.
The air
and
is
it looks
pulling
like
in really fast on this. Right there. Yeah, if you can see that right there, Jack, that is beginning to rotate very quickly. Yes, that's moving very fast. Very, very fast.
I see it.
This one, I wouldn't say it's a full,
I'm
looking on the ground. I don't see anything on the ground yet. But this is right in the town of Kinburn.
Wow, look at that.
It looks like it's just south of Kinburn. Yeah, there's a bypass on Kinburn. Yes, this is starting to move very fast now. Yeah.
I see this. We are
closely.
all watching this with you live, and you can start to see it tightening up a little bit there, just where that power line is. Be careful. I'm watching it on radar, and yes, you are correct, Mark. That would be the area. So you know, this is just north of Marathon Village, northwest of Carp. That's what I'm seeing on radar, and I'm just watching your shot. I'm sure viewers are just glued to this. But you know, this doesn't guarantee anything's even happening right now, because you and I have seen
Jack,
this
I think
lots
we just
of
had a
times
tornado
where it
warning.
looks like it. Did we? Oh gosh, we do.
We have a tornado warning.
Okay.
Yes,
Mark,
my phone just went off.
Thank you for that. You're right. You're absolutely right. Let me get that out to viewers
I'm gonna continue
immediately
after
here and
this.
tell you who. Yes, please. Okay, let's get that tornado warning. I still don't have the tornado warning on my screen. If my team could help post that warning to me, that'd be so helpful. If anybody can get that info. Kim's got it. Let's go to Kim. Kim, thank you so much. Let's go live to you, and we'll come.
Yep,
right back to Mark.
Hot off the presses, Jacqueline. Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans are all now in the tornado warning. So that warning replaces the severe thunderstorm warning. So Ottawa North, Canada, Orleans are all currently under the tornado warning. Dangerous, potentially life-threatening situation. That's what ECCC always says on these. This is the same cell that Mark is on. So that rotating storm that we were all just looking at right now is the same one that ECCC is warning now. It is a tornado warning for Ottawa North, Canada, Orleans. Again, if you're in these areas, you want to take cover, you want to be in somewhere safe. Again, the lowest room in your home is the best place to be. Specifically a basement. If you don't have one, get into one of those interior rooms like a closet, a bathtub, and pull something over you if you need to, blankets, that kind of thing. But this is in an area that has already seen some very severe weather in the last few years and even in the last few weeks. And our Mark Robinson is following the storm right now. Again, one more time, the area under the tornado warning, Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans are all under that warning that was just issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada. Let's go to Mark Robinson now, who has been on this storm. Mark, not looking quite as ominous right here, but I'm wondering if that's your shot or if that's where you are or if the storm is starting to dissipate.
No, that is my shot. Kim, stand by. I'm going to try and show you exactly what it looks like, simply because there's what you're looking at right now. Now, it is not rotating as hard as it was, but definitely you can see the sort of the condensation happening right here. So there's where it's coming in, there's where it's coming in. So you see condensation building here, and it's sort of rolling like this up there. So I'm looking on the ground. I don't see anything on the ground yet, but definitely, definitely moving fairly quickly. I just have to be very careful. It's not directly above me. Because sometimes you'll get different areas of rotation, and I have to be very, very careful. So I have to keep my head on a swivel here just to make sure that I'm not suddenly going to be surprised by something behind me. But I think definitely we're looking into the area of concern right there. Now, it doesn't have like really, really strong rotation at this point, and it's not focused in on one spot yet. But given that this storm has been organizing as it's been moving, this is definitely a storm to take seriously. If you are in the path of this storm, and Kim, you're going to know the path better than I am, so I'm just going to show people what I'm seeing, and you'll be able to tell people which towns are in the way of this.
I can in 1 second. It's just off the press again. So, and by press, I mean printer. Okay. So the areas will be near Kinburn, which I think Mark mentioned earlier. So this is moving east at 50 kilometers per hour near Kinburn. Hazards, ping pong ball-sized hail and 90 kilometer per hour wind gusts. The locations impacted include Kinburn, Dunrobin, Malwood, and Mud Pond. So these are all the areas that are in the path. But right now it is near Kinburn, moving east at 50 kilometers per hour. The areas under the tornado warning that we're looking at right now, we're looking at the storm that is tornado warned. Mark Robinson is on it.
Boy.
Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans. But these are big areas. So this is a huge area right now under that tornado warning. I know a lot of people live here as well. But we're talking specifically near Kinburn. So that's just south of Arnprior, moving east at 50 kilometers per hour, ping pong ball-sized hail, 90 kilometer per hour wind gusts, and locations impacted include, and if you are in one of these areas, you're going to want to take shelter. Kinburn, Dunrobin, I hate to say Dunrobin, but here we are again, Dunrobin, Malwood, and Mud Pond. So these are the regions. If you know someone in these areas, maybe you know somebody who is on vacation or camping, hopefully they have their cell phone and they're getting their alerts, or at the very least are paying attention to the skies, because those skies don't lie. And Mark Robinson on the storm saw it start to lower and rotate a bit as well. Scary stuff, and a lot of lightning we've seen as well on this particular storm. Mark, any commentary on what you're seeing?
Yeah, Kim, if you can still hear me, I mean, I'm going into a little bit worse cell phone area, but just to my east right now, I'm going to turn east in a second, new area of rotation a little further to the east, that you can actually see another lowered area, another lowered and looks like spinning area. So I have to sort of decide whether I want to go down some of these dirt roads and get in front of this. You know what? Actually, I think I'm going to head further south.
Yikes.
And then go, just because I do not want to be stuck on a small dirt road with a potential tornado forming up near me. So I'm going to head down a little further, closer to Dunrobin, and then cut across. So you won't be able to see too much at the moment. Probably looks like blue skies, and that is so classic of these very organized supercell thunderstorms. And there go the other chasers.
You get yourself in a good position, and a safe position. We'll go to Jacqueline and we'll take a closer look at the radar. But again, the areas in the tornado warning in general include Ottawa, North, Canada, and Orleans. But the areas that we're most concerned about, this storm is near Kinburn, moving east at 50 kilometers per hour. And the areas impacted could be Kinburn, as well as Dunrobin, Malwood, and Mud Pond. We're talking about large hail with this storm. Upwards of ping pong ball sized hail is possible, and 90 kilometer per hour winds as well. So Jacqueline, what a moment for Mark Robinson, but I get nervous when he's in these rural areas. Ontario is not an easy place to chase. It's certainly not like the prairies, the openness of some of the plain states. So it can get tricky really quickly.
It can, and I get nervous too, and that's fair. That's a good point. That's why Mark is likely dropping south. If I can just show you this radar map, I can probably tell you what Mark is about to do. He's dropping south, so he gets out of the precipitation a little bit. He's probably going to head eastward, and this storm by then is going to be moving east, so he stays out ahead of it, rather than driving north right into the area of rotation, which is right there. And that was definitely looking like it was about to produce a tornado in that Kinburn area. I mean, it really did. We had a funnel, we had a solid funnel. This is about where Kinburn is. This is all moving eastward, which is why we have these areas under that tornado warning, as Kim's been talking about. But this is the cell that we're watching. And yeah, it definitely has an interesting look. We are not shocked by this because this is moving into an environment where we knew that wind shear would be most prominent, especially by this point in the day. So as it moves to the Ottawa metro area, you've got this outer band of rain. Over where Mark is, you remember how Mark said, I'm going to drop south and I might actually see blue sky? The reason he means that is because there's nothing going on over here. This is just all open, clear day. Where the updraft and the business end, as Mark usually says, of the storm is going to be right about here. That's where the updraft is. This is where the heavy rain is. That's where that's falling. Where the rotation is, the inflow notch, right in this area of the storm. So you don't want to position yourself ever as a chaser in that area. You want to be getting east, staying ahead of the storm, or in this case, dropping south a little and moving east. Do we happen to have Mark back up? Does he, has he repositioned yet, Emmanuel, my producer? If he is, I'd love to chat with him and see what he's seeing, because on radar, this is still showing signs of broad rotation, for sure, but it hasn't tightened up, and that's exactly what Mark was saying when we spoke to him, that he was seeing a new area of rotation. That corresponds to what I'm seeing also on the radar, but the areas that are going to be impacted by this storm, regardless of rotation, areas like Carp, Dunrobin, which is located kind of in this area right around here, you're going to be getting into heavy, heavy rain, potentially some, we haven't seen a lot, we haven't heard of much hail in this area, but Constance Bay, sounds like we do. Okay, there's Mark. thank you to my producer, Robin, who's helping me in studio. So, Mark, you're obviously repositioning. Good call on that. I think you dropped south, and now I'm assuming you're probably headed east toward maybe Carp. Would that ring true?
Yeah, Jack, I'm actually headed south. The road network here gets into trees a little bit. So to keep this one in view, I'm dropping south towards, you talked about Carp. And that's actually sort of where I'm headed towards at this point. But the wall cloud, Jack, it's just amazing to see. It's been rebuilding, and then it would sort of die off, and it's rebuilding again now, off to almost due east to where I am now. And I am just near the town. Yeah, I'm just coming up to Carp in probably about 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so you're headed south. So, okay, that makes sense. And of course, you and I, this is exciting to see a wall cloud. But for folks, and because we're storm chasers and we're weather geeks, but for folks in Carp and Dunrobin, this is a very powerful storm on radar. Maybe we could just take my shot, the radar shot, really quickly, and then come right back to Mark. Notice this storm. This is a sizable system that is going to be impacting all those areas. This is where Mark's headed toward, Carp, but all these little towns north of there. So that includes areas like Dunrobin, Constance Bay. It's east of Kinburn now. We just actually got a new scan. And you know what? This is definitely building a stronger core. So I'm going to mention that to Mark because he's probably driving and not knowing that. So that means the potential for larger hail is a possibility, or at least some heavy rain. Looking as I speak to you, yes, definitely a new area of rotation, it would seem, sort of back toward the west. Do we have Mark still? Could we possibly go to Mark? Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Robin. Mark, if you can hear me, the updraft is really rebuilding. It's building a stronger core. I can see your shot. I assume back to your left is where the base of the storm would be, and you're looking directly into the core, correct?
Yes, I'm looking directly into the core. Now, there's, Jack, it looks like what we've got is the RFD, the rear flank downdraft, is beginning to sort of cut around the one side of the storm. And I'm quite pleased to see that right now. And it does look like I'm going to get into a valley in a minute, unfortunately. So maybe what I will do is pull over in a second, because it does look like, I may lose track of it a little bit, but I want to sort of zip in here a little tighter and see what I can see. The biggest issue, again, with a lot of southern Ontario is that you got a lot of trees, and sometimes it's really difficult to see.
Yeah.
But definitely building, once again, building like sort of a wall cloud on the backside of the core. Whether or not there's strong rotation in there, tough to say at this point, but I do see something. I think I see something, Jack. I think I see something about midway between that cell. I'm going to pull over here for a second, and then you should be able to. I'm just going to pull this up right now, and you should be able to see right there. That was started to look. There started to be a little bit of what looks to be a funnel right in there. But again, could be a bit of an optical illusion. Because it's always a little bit difficult to tell if you're not sort of right underneath it and taking a look. So I'll likely continue. It looks like I can only go south sort of around Carp, and that looks like from there it leads down towards Canada. So definitely Canada is an area that this one is moving towards, and I'm going to zip up. Oh, and there's a police officer right there beside me on the side of the road.
I saw that. Be careful.
Likely waiting for this. Yeah, don't worry, I am not speeding.
Yeah, be careful.
Yeah, this one is definitely one.
Mark, that sounds like a really good plan.
Definitely one I'm watching.
Sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, that sounds like a really good plan to get over to Canada, because what's happening, Mark, is this updraft is starting to back build. It's really starting to build to the west, so you've got lots of time. In other words, that rotation is far west of Carp now. So if you make your way to Canada, that's a good plan.
Jack,
you might get into a bit of the precipitation field a little bit. Yes, go ahead,
Jack,
Mark.
Can I break in, Jack? I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
I want to show you this right now. This is building down very quickly. And yeah, that's the one I'm watching right now. Yeah, you can see on the right side, that scud is pulling into that very, very fast. And then underneath that, just watching very closely. I'm going to zoom it up a little bit, and you'll be able to see right there. If something's going to appear, it's going to appear there. And oftentimes you have to stop. If you've got a view, even if you're far away, if you've got a view, you stop and you take a look.
Nobody understands this better than I agree 100%, and make sure you're safe to do so. And while we're looking at that shot, please just stay with us, Mark, and just keep your camera pointed at that area. Because I'm going to just tell the viewers here that
how are you doing?
Good. It's a little bit loud there, sorry.
I'm Jonathan from Instagram.
Oh, hey.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, we've got a viewer here. I just want to talk about the Canada, Ottawa, Gatineau, those areas. This storm is headed your way, and as you can see, we are seeing the rotation before our eyes here with Mark on the ground on the cell right now that is showing signs of rotation. North of Carp, Dunrobin, you're likely seeing some heavy downpours now as this storm is getting closer to you. The area of rotation is still kind of back in this area. So Mark, somewhere around here, he's headed over to Canada. And and we do have the tornado warning still in effect. And that includes many of the areas. I'm going to send it back into studio for Kim if she could, and maybe you could give an update on those tornado warnings, because we've really been showing the field, and maybe Mark could stay with us even, because, back over to you, Kim.
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder for Mark to tell us where he is all the time, because people who are watching may be thinking, okay, well, where are you? So anyway, this is the area that is under the tornado warning, just around the Ottawa region. So again, Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans are all under the warning. But we were talking about places like Dunrobin was in the path of this storm, Malwood, Mud Pond, Kinburn at the very beginning as well. So this has a lot going on here. But again, there is the area just along the Ottawa River under the tornado warning currently. Obviously, Mark Robinson has his eyes on this particular storm. He saw it develop. He saw it start to rotate and lower as well. Nothing has touched the ground as far as we know at this point in time, but this is a serious storm headed into a highly populated area. So we have to be prepared for anything at this point in time. An area that had been under the tornado watch for hours, but then the warnings came as we had anticipated. Any one of these storms could have done this, but this particular cell is the one that has. So again, ping pong ball sized hail, 90 kilometer per hour wind gusts, locations, Kinburn, Dunrobin, Malwood, and Mud Pond. But we were talking about how this storm is moving at about 50 kilometers per hour and moving towards the Canada area of Ottawa. So again, if you are in this area, we have eyes on this storm. We see how significant it could possibly be with that heavy rain and hail, etc. And you're going to want to get indoors. So let's look again at what Mark is looking at right now. Mark, this is pretty impressive, and I know you're heading right for it. So where are you right now? Do you know?
Yes, I'm in the town of Carp, and I'm going to be heading around it because trying to get through if you get stuck in an urban area, it's never ever good because you want to stick with that storm and not be caught by traffic. So right now, all you're going to be seeing is some urban areas, but that does give you an idea of what this storm is going to be moving into. Urban areas like this. I'll be able to follow this as long as possible. But if it does get into very, very urban areas like Ottawa itself, it will be impossible to follow. I'm hoping that it'll weaken by then, because I do not want to see this producing a tornado, if it was to produce a tornado and go through Ottawa. That's worst case scenario. Right now, I can't see anything on it right now, but there's definitely a lowered area and a strong area of rotation off to my east at this point. I'm just south of the town of Carp, headed down towards Canada.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So if you're in the Carp area, you're looking at what Mark is looking at, and again, be in the basement if you have a tornado warning. I know it's a big area that's under the tornado warning right now. We're going to take a closer look at the radar with Jacqueline, just 1 second. But again, if you don't have a basement, don't panic. Just get into the lowest room in your home, whatever that may be. Maybe it's an apartment and you're going down to the first floor and you want to get into a room that has very few windows or very small windows, and put as much room between you and the outdoors, as many walls between you and the outdoors as possible. Jacqueline, yes, I mean, Mark is on this. He was in a rural location. Now he's driving through towns and he's getting closer to Ottawa, and that can be problematic. But I have faith that because these warnings are out and they're, that people know, because the alerts would be out as well. I'm not hearing Jacqueline. I don't know if is that me or her? That's a mic issue? Oh, it's a tech issue. Okay. Oh, we've got her now. Okay, we'll get back.
I'm good
to
now. Yes.
Okay, Jacqueline. Okay, we're back to you now. Okay, and I want to hear every word you just said.
That was on me. That was my bad. So,
okay.
yeah, I'm back in the game here, Kim. I wanted to say that, I believe that the Environment Canada tornado warning was absolutely perfectly timed and the right move, because we saw rotation on that storm with our own eyes, as Mark Robinson was actually on that particular storm cell. And, it's heading very close to the Ottawa region, that exact storm cell that has been showing the signs of rotation on a trajectory to be moving right into the Ottawa metro area. A very scary scene when you've got basically 3 supercells in and around the Ottawa-Gatineau region, or at least 3 strong storms. This one, and then this one. That's the one that Mark is on right now. We did see potentially a funnel at one point just northwest of Carp, and the area of rotation is still going to be in that same area. So it's just kind of north and west of Carp. This storm is moving. I believe it's moving at about 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. Canada, by the way, is home to about 100,000 residents. So this storm right now is just entering Canada. And that highway that extends, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, from Canada all the way up to Ottawa, likely getting into some rain. In the green, you can see, we know that by, is it 17, Kim? I heard you say Highway 17.
417.
Oh, 417. Sorry, yes, thank you. 417. Okay. Right? Well, I appreciate that. And so along that highway, we're starting to see some rain. And then it's only going to be intensifying as the heavier rain starts to move eastward. That's one part of it. Whether or not there's hail in this, can I go back? Let me see if I can go back to our hail parameter and see if we're seeing, it doesn't look like it's picking up on any hail. So it looks like to be just heavy rain at the time, but we know we have seen, you can see that's much less defined radar. So let me go back to the Ottawa local radar site and we will get a much better view there. Wow, that's got a very strong core. At the very least, some very heavy downpours. And the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway, of course, it is Highway 417. Thank you, Rachel, for that. Rachel Modestino, great team back in headquarters helping all of us out. But there we go. That's where the area of rotation would be if it still is rotating. We're going to check in with Mark Robinson whenever he, okay, what do we got here? We can go to him. Hold on, I'm just going to give you guys an update. Severe thunderstorm warning for Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans replaces the tornado warning. So it sounds like the tornado warning has dropped, Kim, which is great news. So the rotation must have weakened out. That's excellent news as it moves toward the nation's capital. Certainly don't want a rotating supercell headed right toward Ottawa. So that's good news. What we have left, Kim, of course, would be some heavy rain, some strong winds, and up to ping pong ball sized hail with these storms. Kim?
I have a couple of videos that I want to show you. This is the radar right now. There's the area just dropping out of the tornado warning. I saw this happen, which is good, but this was the storm cloud that started to produce it started to lower, as what Mark had his eyes on earlier. This was in the beginning stages in Arnprior when he captured that. But look at this. This is from the Lindsay storm, which we were watching, and we talked about hail coming down. Just incredible. So this was Life of a D-Man on Twitter. I want to give him a shout out. Just all kinds of hail. And we were talking about those storms would have been producing something like that. We could tell from the hail core on the radar that it would be. A lot of people talking about the lightning on these storms, a huge line of just individual storms moving across southern and eastern Ontario right now. The area that was in the tornado warning continues to be in a severe thunderstorm warning. So not out of the woods, still looking at stormy conditions. These storms have not just dissipated completely, but certainly the threat of rotation, the threat of a tornado has diminished, which is great news. ECC on top of this as well. ECCC, there we go. And there again is the storm that Mark Robinson, the line of storms that he has been following. Again, I had the where to be in case of a tornado, in case something pops up again. The tornado watch remains in place as well, because we still have ingredients for this to happen with these particular storms. Once we get into the evening hours, these storms tend to diminish in severity because we lose the daytime heating, we lose the light of day. But around this time of day into the late afternoon, early evening, that's when things seem to be at their most severe when it comes to these kinds of storms. Jacqueline, you've been watching this radar very carefully. I mean, for a while there, it looked quite dangerous with what Mark was looking at.
It did, and I think we can all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief when we see that tornado warning dropped, Kim, for the Ottawa area and the Canada area. A couple changes on radar I'd really like to highlight, and maybe why we've seen that tornado warning drop off. So a couple things. We have 3 storms that we're really watching. The one just kind of north and west of Canada, you're seeing a bit of heavy rain along Highway 417 up here to Ottawa. But this is now building a bigger core, but it's also starting to congeal or sort of join forces with the storm to the north, and even this one north of Gatineau. So what that means is it's not that it's out of the question to have a tornado, but it's harder to get a big cluster of storms to produce rotation rather than just an isolated storm. So I'm not going to just say that we're off the hook, but it does look less favorable just based on the reflectivity radar. As far as the velocity radar, which is where we see inbound and outbound winds on radar, it also seems to be showing less in the way of rotation at this point. Very broad rotation. So we'll keep a close eye on it, especially as it moves toward the Ottawa metro area. But there's a lot of towns that are going to be impacted by this, Kim, that are west of Highway 417, like Elmer, Kilroy Crescent, Bell's Corner. This is all east of Canada. Let's see, Hollow Glen, Glen Eagle, Chelsea, Quebec, where my very good friend Ray Zahab lives. This is all, these are all outside towns and little suburbs near Ottawa. So all those areas are going to be getting a very powerful storm. And I'm just getting an update on Twitter from the very good friend of mine, Dave Sills, who is the head of the Northern Tornado Project. He says the tornado warned supercell in the Ottawa area is the right mover of a split. Interesting. The left mover headed off to northeast into Quebec. Neither has shown too strong of rotation. So yeah, that's good. So, and he's also thinking they could be producing some hail. So yeah, you can actually, I get what Dave's saying. He's saying that it's split. You can see the storms. If I show that radar one more time, you can actually see the storms were one unit and then they split into 2 different units. One is going into Quebec. The other one is headed toward the metro Ottawa area. Dave is bang on. And again, Dave Sills is the founder of the Northern Tornado Project, which of course they do all the damage assessments along with Environment Canada after a tornado occurs. And so he would have been greatly responsible for doing the most recent tornado damage assessment just a few weeks ago in Barrhaven. So Kim, favorable news, but still very strong storm moving toward the Ottawa region.
Yeah, we're still talking about damaging winds potentially, a lot of lightning on these storms. We've seen that time and again. It's hard to pinpoint which storm will produce any kind of rotation or a tornado. It looked for a minute like the ones that Mark was looking at, or the one that Mark was looking at, got very scary very quickly. I'm glad things have dissipated, but heavy rain with these storms, large hail, and a lot of lightning as well. And we had a feature done by Rachel Modestino. We're talking about the myths of tornadoes, and do they miss large city? Can a large city get hit with a tornado? Yes, it can. Can a tornado hit the same place twice? It's rare, but it can happen. And we're obviously seeing tornado watches and warnings in the same area that we've seen them before. And we talked about Dunrobin from a few years ago and Barrhaven from just a couple of weeks ago. So yes, it can, and it seems to be targeting Eastern Ontario. We're going to go to Mark Robinson right now, who has his eye on these storms. Again, the storm has not died completely. It's still a severe thunderstorm, but we're not seeing the same kind of signature of a tornado that we had earlier. And ECCC has dropped the tornado warning, but we're right back to the severe thunderstorm warning. So it's not like it's over altogether. Mark, that's a pretty impressive sky you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm headed actually down through, which I'm not even sure which town I'm in right now, but I'm just north of Canada. And this, you can see the core of that storm headed right down there. I'm trying to get ahead of it a little bit, but of course it always becomes difficult. You're talking about an urban area. It's super difficult to move around just because traffic, and you've got other cars, other people moving around, so definitely a difficult thing. But, looking at this storm, there is some broad rotation on it still. But what I can sort of see mostly is how white it is just off to my east. And when it's white like that, tells me that there's a lot of hail in there. And looking on radar, it definitely does look like there's a lot of radar. I'm going to spin the camera around a little bit because I'm headed due south now towards the 417. It does look like that one is going to pass right through downtown, if not just a bit south of the downtown Ottawa area, which means it may hit Barrhaven again. Now, there isn't a big tornado on this time, but definitely some potential big hail that's still on this. Now, it may begin to die out, but it's definitely something that I'm watching very closely. It doesn't have that real organization that I saw earlier. That's the missing part to this right now.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Mark, can I chime in? Kim, if you mind, I'm just going to chime in really quickly. Mark, you're bang on in terms of the correlation to the radar too, because I actually just said to our team in headquarters, it's looking a little shelfy to me. Your view is looking a little bit what we call outflow dominant. So that means that the cold air is winning over the warm air, and that's when you get that kind of shelf cloud, which Mark is seeing. Now, Mark, one other thing that you mentioned is that hail, the white, revealing likely some hail in there. Oddly enough, I'm not seeing a lot on our actual hail product radar-wise, but I gotta think that thing's putting down some pretty big hail, or at least a lot of hail.
Yeah, I would think, maybe a lot of hail. I mean, again, Jack, you are correct. It does look like I'm getting underneath, a shelf cloud here, which is kind of neat. It really is absolutely fascinating to see this. Definitely doesn't have that organization that we saw earlier. Very sort of long. I'm looking for a wall cloud, not really seeing it. Definitely low, though we are seeing some condensation sort of sucking up inside this shelf. So what I'm going to try and do is maybe get a little bit south of this, maybe get down to the 417 and go down the 417 a little bit and turn around and take a look. But either way, yeah, definitely Ottawa is in for another good thunderstorm. And all my writer friends, hi Marie, hi Derek, hi Brandon, you guys are probably in for it yet again. So yeah, sorry about that.
Mark, you're right. There's a large hail core, or at least some very, very heavy rain moving toward the Ottawa Metro. In fact, some of that rain shield, or rain, rain, part of the storm, a little bit of rain, has moved in across the 417 right now. So if you're planning on heading north, Mark, you are going to get into some heavy rains, at least some yellows and reds on the reflectivity. But the core is well back to the west, probably affecting little towns as we speak, like, let me see, I'll just go to my, so I mean, maybe areas like Elmer, Kilroy Crescent, what else is in this area? Bell's Corner, potentially, even as far north as Chelsea, maybe, getting into some heavy rain. But that's the core of this thunderstorm, and that would be where the hail is. And this is all headed directly toward Ottawa. So Ottawa, get ready for it. I want to take the time for a second. We're going to get back to Kim. Kim, we've had a question about Montreal, and I meant to answer this some time ago. someone that lives in Montreal is saying, okay, what kind of impact am I going to see this evening? Well, I'm going to go to our short range weather model. This is different than radar. This is what's predicted. And as you can see, by about 7 to 8 p.m.-ish, that's an ish, we're going to have weakening thunderstorms likely moving over the Metro Montreal area. That means some heavy downpours, potentially some strong wind gusts. I would imagine that's going to be making its way toward you between maybe 7 and 8 p.m. So I hope that answers your question. That's an overall look at the overall storm. Kim, do you have any updates in studio that you might be able to share? And maybe we go back to Mark.
Yeah, there's nothing new as far as warnings are concerned right now. Obviously, there's a few areas of concern. Now this severe thunderstorm warning is stretching from Georgian Bay all the way across through Ottawa and onto the other side of the border into Ottawa Hull area, Northern Ontario, still some warnings there as well. So a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings and all along that cold front. And this is exactly what we had kind of predicted. And when these start to get closer together, the less fierce they are. It's when they are individual that things start to get pretty dicey. Jacqueline?
Exactly, Kim. Let's go back to the radar again here. And I'm going to show you. Am I up right now? There we go. Okay, thank you. I just heard Kim having a bit of a cough. Welcome. This is how it rolls on live stream. You guys get the most raw form of all of us meteorologists and on-air people. Okay, there's the core making its way closer to that 417 corridor. So that heavy rain now, if you are on the highway, likely, it's going to get I just saw one of our colleagues. It's going to get noisy. It's going to get rainy. You're going to get some strong winds if you already aren't in Ottawa. And still the heaviest rain and potentially the hail is still back toward the west. But it is moving fast. Remember that these storms are moving at about 50 kilometers an hour to the east. So this is going to be here and gone before you know it. It's going to be past Ottawa, and then it's going to be headed eastward to some of these other communities. Gatineau, Quebec, you're seeing some probably light rain at this point. The heaviest rain is north of you. And of course, Mark Robinson has been chasing this storm cell that has been tornado warned this last hour. And I think, Mark, it's safe to say you probably even saw a funnel right before our eyes. Right now, I know this looks scary to viewers, but you and I know that this storm is likely now losing its tornado potential, and really it's becoming more of a heavy rain and strong winds. What can you share with us, Mark?
I don't know, Jack. I can't really show you, which is too bad. But I'm seeing some pretty good rotation almost directly above the car, which is never a good thing. But definitely this one, it's not quite as dead as you might think. It does look like it's headed south, so I'm going to head down the 416 south. And that's sort of, so I can get ahead of this a little bit, so I can keep this area of spin that's directly above the car, just a little bit of, so I can sort of take a look at it. Lots of turbulent motion, and definitely, either way, remember, even if it's not producing a tornado, the most dangerous part of the storm is always the lightning. Lightning, very, very dangerous. If you're in shelter, if you're in a building, you're safe. If you're inside your car, you're safe as long as your windows aren't down. And as I always like to say, as long as you're not licking the inside of your car, you're probably going to be good. But definitely one of the, these are storms to take seriously, and it does look like the core is directly over top of Ottawa downtown right now. But just a fascinating storm to watch. Just going to be heading down on the 416 southbound right now.
Would that be the 416, Mark, or would that be the 417? I guess 16. So okay. Thank you. Mark, stay with me here if you don't mind, because I see what you're seeing on radar. There's broad rotation, and I see, I'm going to show the viewers, maybe if we take that radar. Do you see this the latest scan shows this little appendage here? That's what Mark's talking about, and literally that just happened in the last scan. Right there, it looks like it's gone, and then poof, it comes in. So I'm changing my tune as well, because what looked to be outflow dominant, meaning cold air was winning out of this storm, okay? Now we've got potentially a new updraft building. I don't know this for sure. But I think that the new updraft is forming right over top of Canada, potentially, Mark. I don't know if Mark's still with me, if he can hear me, but this would be the area likely of rotation that Mark is seeing. So I'm changing my tune because what looked like what the storm was doing for a minute, it seems to be changing. Now, here's the good news. If that area of rotation is happening, it's likely to move south of the Ottawa Metro, I think, by this radar view. That's not a guarantee, but that looks like it would be probably crossing south. That being said, Mark, if you're with me and if you can hear me, we have a sizable thunderstorm making its way, crossing the 417, 416, whatever that highway is, just right due south out of Ottawa. This core is going to be moving right over that area in the next 20 minutes. Okay, what are you seeing, Mark? I'm going to go to you.
Oh, sorry, Jack. I just had a lightning bolt hit beside the road there. So talking about how dangerous lightning is, I'm in the car. I know I'm completely safe, but that still makes you jump when it happens right beside you. And now I'm getting out in front of this storm a little bit. I'm going to go down right to the exit for Barrhaven, and I'm going to turn around. I should be far enough ahead of it at that point to be able to look back and assess what I'm seeing. It's very difficult to do. This is why, Jack, I wish you were in the car with me. It's killing me that you're so far away. Assess a little bit what this storm is doing, so that I can sort of attack this storm and get a good look at it without being in the danger area or being so close underneath that I can't really tell you what's going on. So next exit, I'm going to get off for Barrhaven and see how the storm looks.
That's fair, Mark. I wish I was in the car with you too, but I have to say, I think it's almost like I'm desk chasing. It's almost like I am in the car with Mark. That updraft, Mark, is definitely starting to build a little. So there's a new kind of an appendage, if you will, due south of Ottawa, north and east of Canada. That is a new little updraft building. The reason that's interesting is that it shows that this storm is still got some life, got some legs in it, okay? So that means that the tornado threat may not be done, as Mark had mentioned too, because this has got this kind of funny looking shape. This says to me that inflow winds are doing this. So if you imagine, let's talk about wind shear. You've got winds, say, coming in from the southeast in this direction into this little notchy area. So the thunderstorm is sucking up those winds at the surface. Maybe over here you have winds a little higher up in the atmosphere coming from the west-southwest. And then maybe at jet stream level, you've got them kind of coming due west or even northwest. That's enough to make this start to spin. Okay, that's how we can get rotation. If this little appendage thing was not here, I wouldn't be even concerned about this storm, because I would say, well, it's got a big core and it's probably outflow dominant, and it's going to be a rainstorm or even a hailstorm. If this starts to intensify each scan, we got to watch out for that tornadic threat still. The other reason that this is interesting is we know that it's in a favorable environment in terms of the wind shear. It also has unimpeded inflow. So remember the winds I was talking about that are being sucked into the storm like so? Mark actually shows us visuals of that sometimes, where he'll show you like the grass and it's all moving in one direction. And the storm is quite literally sucking it up into the updraft. When you have other storms like out here, that would impede that ability to bring in that warm air. There's nothing ahead of it. So it's open for business. It's open for rotation because we know there's wind shear prevalent, it's available. So we're going to watch closely. I'm going to just keep watching. Yes, we've got some shots of some mammatus. That's not shocking at all. Probably some folks east of Ottawa, or when the storm entered the Ottawa area. I'll show you where the mammatus would be. So if this is kind of the main updraft, we've got this new building updraft, right? The upper level winds I mentioned take the thunderstorm at 50, 60,000 feet in the air, and it blows the tops of them right off, blows them right off. If you can imagine just shearing the top of the thunderstorm. What it does is it pushes them out ahead of the storm. So this is high level cloud. And underneath that anvil, we call that an anvil, you can get mammatus, those little pouchy storms. And they're always neat to see. So I'm not shocked across the 417. I imagine we're probably going to see some shots of mammatus coming through. Do we have Kim Oh, we've got Mark. Let's go back to Mark. Mark, I keep watching this back sort of new building updraft that's just east of Canada, and the core being right over the southern,
wow.
I guess, southern part of Ottawa. You're looking due north, I assume? Is that what you're looking? Yeah, you're looking due north right now.
I'm actually looking due east, and I want to show you something that
Oh, you are? Okay, you're looking into the core that way.
Definitely it. There you go. There you go. Nice
Wow.
little
Yeah.
shelf beginning there. Nice curve to that shelf.
Yeah.
That is headed directly towards Barrhaven. Now, for me to pursue this storm, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to have to go south of Barrhaven, so I'm likely going to lose the storm for a little bit, and then come back up to it, and sort of as it begins to push down south. Now, when you see this, usually that means the storm's beginning to get a little bit linear. And it usually means that it's losing a little bit of its punch. Looks amazing, but probably fingers crossed it's not going to do any damage as it goes through Barrhaven. But definitely got to watch this one, because just as we keep saying, just because it's not producing a tornado doesn't mean it's not a dangerous storm. So Jack, you can probably let me know if I can get around and where this one's going.
I can let you know, if you were to go straight east out of Barrhaven, you'll stay south of the main precipitation field, which is good, and then you could just kind of stay east and then head north when you feel it's safe to do so. And I agree with you, Mark, that the chances of this getting into a rotating supercell now is less likely, but I'm hesitant to give up on this storm quite yet either, because just northwest of Barrhaven, there is kind of a interesting sort of notchy area on radar. I'm sure you're looking at the same thing. And then due north of Barrhaven is that sizable core, which is east of Britannia. Let's see here, I'm going to zoom in. And right along the 417, heavy rain, potentially hail. And there's just lots of strong cells. Mark, I'm going to take a minute to go to radar for a minute. I'm going to let you reposition. Thank you for all of your analysis and fantastic work out in the field. I want to just show you, the big picture here, because there is a lot going on. I'm going to go to a different radar here. If you can just bear with me, I'm going to go to a more zoomed out radar. So I know that's not quite as detailed, but I can get more detailed as we look in. So there's the system. I mean, okay, what have we seen today? We saw a sizable storm move through the Peterborough area earlier. There it is there. I'm just moving this in kind of slow motion. Boy, that's not moving very fast at all. Haven't looked at that in a while. The Parry Sound storm, of course, is well east of that. Mactier, Bracebridge getting into some heavy rain. Moving toward Midland next, and Orillia, Collingwood, along Highway 26, along Highway 400 and Highway 11. All those areas are going to be impacted by this line of storms. No tornado threat at the time for any of those. In terms of the Ottawa area, and if we go to eastern Ontario, we can see that Peterborough storm here, east of the area now, but there, Kingston, Belleville, all those areas in eastern Ontario. There, that's a bit better view. I was all upside down there. They will be seeing storms as well. This line of storms that is in the Ottawa region, but also north and south of Ottawa as well. So let me just zoom out there. You can see, yes, we're really highlighting Ottawa because it's our nation's capital, and it's a very highly populated area. But there's a batch of storms through all of these areas out ahead of this cold front. What will likely happen is they will start to kind of join forces and become a very strong line of storms. And then what we typically see is embedded areas of rotation, but less of an isolated storm potentially producing any sort of tornadic threat. That's usually what we see. I'm going to go back up to the Ottawa area because, for example, we could go to this line of storms right here. I can guarantee you that this is definitely producing some strong winds. We've got this area here west of Clarence, Rockland. That's probably producing some heavy rain, potentially even some hail. And then back on this same cell that, of course, Mark Robinson is on, basically stretching from Gatineau all the way down to Barrhaven. Of course, Barrhaven, it was just a few weeks ago where we saw a tornado, an EF1 tornado in that area. People are still regrouping and doing cleanup, I'm sure, in that area. But right now, if I go back into a bit more of a granular look, that is the, oh geez, there we go. So remember a few scans ago, I was talking about this area was green at the time, and I said, oh, it looks like it's starting to rebuild a new updraft. You can clearly see that it's trying to do that because it's intensifying in that area. It started as very weak returns, radar returns, and now it's starting to show even some yellow. So that means heavier rain. So this is the little appendage that I'm talking about. What that means is air is rising. It's a new updraft that's building on this storm. And that because it's in a favorable wind environment, we still can't give up on this storm in terms of the tornado potential. There is no tornado warning on it right now, which is great news, but it's not showing like it's completely done, to me anyway. So we're going to watch that very closely. We go down to some of these storms near Stittsville, east of Carleton Place, moving into, well, let's say Kempville soon. Those are some powerful storms too. Smith Falls. A lot of people may be traveling to these areas because we're Thursday of the civic holiday weekend, and a lot of people are probably headed to the cottage in this area. Please let someone know that there's some very strong storms moving in this area. Let's go to another area and look at some of these storms on radar. I'm just going to press pause. There we go. Okay, and so we're going to bring Kim McDonald back in just 2 seconds. Kim, I am going to throw it to you. We've got a batch of storms that is moving. What highway is that? I could use some help. All the way to Smith Falls, back toward Peterborough. What is that, 7?
7? I think that's 7.
I don't know what highway that is.
I think
is
it's
it 7?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some, strong storms right along Highway 7. Oh, and okay, I'm being told that is, that appendage, Kim, before I throw to you, and thank you to my team of meteorologists who helped me out so much, because we're all learning, right? We all have to ask questions, and this is helpful. This new little appendage here, Kim, is what we call a rear flank downdraft, and that could enhance the rotation. Okay, so it's not necessarily a brand new updraft. It might be, but it may not be. It might be kind of a rear flank downdraft where you get this sort of appendage on the backside of the storm, and this may enhance that rotation still. So meteorologists back in house saying yes, something to still watch, but we're just gonna keep. Boy, there's a lot going on, right? This is like I should just get some juggling balls too while I'm at it.
You can do it. I have faith in you.
I can do it.
Yes.
I'm going to throw it back to you.
Unbelievable, the amount of storms that we have going on simultaneously in Ontario and Quebec right now. When you have a cold front that's massive in the atmosphere, this can tend to happen. All of these storms lining up. Individual right now. The storm's a little more clustered off of Georgian Bay through the Parry Sound area. We saw the storms roll through there earlier, and then storms into Quebec as well. So we currently still have the tornado watch in place. Right now, no tornado warnings, thankfully, but severe thunderstorm warnings. So when you have a severe thunderstorm warning, it means that these storms are happening or are imminent. They come and go throughout the entire process. So usually they are issued the warnings are issued right when a storm happens or is imminent, and then are taken away as soon as that storm rolls through. But it's one of these days where we're starting to see storms dissipate and then come right back again. We saw some rotation on a storm earlier, and that's the storm that ECCC warned, gave it a tornado warning, but now back to severe thunderstorm warnings. Mark Robinson has been out in these storms, and it looks like the middle of the night. Okay, so that's a little bit clearer, Mark, what you're looking at now. So where are you at the moment?
Kim, I'm just near the town of Manotick, which I was going to head off towards the east again, because that storm to my east definitely building some. It really looks like another wall cloud. But I had to come all the way south to come back up and around, because I didn't want to get stuck inside Barrhaven. There you go, lightning right there. This is the other storm that's coming from the west. There's another storm, and it's got some big hail up near the town of Stittsville. But I'm sort of right between the two storms, and boy, I can tell you the darkness and the like almost yellow look to this storm is kind of amazing. This is the one you're looking at right now is the one that's coming from the west. So that's the western storm. You can see it maybe a little bit better now. That is the western storm right now that's just sort of pushing across. I'm going to be headed east to see if I can get down and in front of that other storm that's sort of passing through Barrhaven right now. But either way, these storms are extremely strong, and I don't want to stay here for too long because I'm about to get run over by the rain, and once that starts, it gets very difficult to do anything. So here we go. Off I go.
Okay, well, good luck with that, Mark. Off he goes. It's getting dark. The rain's coming down, and we know that when we have storms like these, the rain can get very intense very quickly. These storms are moving at about 50 kilometers per hour, 50, 60 kilometers per hour. So strong storms, no tornado warnings right now in place, but certainly severe thunderstorm warnings. You can do a little tornado 101. I know Jacqueline will appreciate this. So it starts with the wind setup, and we talk about shear in the atmosphere. So winds coming in at different directions in different levels of the atmosphere. So we can see some coming in from the east, some coming in from the west. Then we start to get rotation. And that is happening high up in the atmosphere to begin with. So there's those two wind directions starting to roll, and then eventually that can come down, and that's when we see the tornadoes first starting as funnel clouds and then eventually touching down. So strong lift in the thunderstorms flips the rotation vertically, and then we have the tornado forming. So these are all the little things that Mark has been looking at as he drives, and certainly the stuff that Jacqueline has been looking at through radar. So there are two ways that you can that you would issue a tornado warning, and one is Mark's way, seeing it and being a seasoned storm chaser and somebody that ECCC can rely on and say, yes, indeed, we've got video evidence or we know the person. And the other way is your way, Jacqueline, when you're looking at a radar and you can see the signature of rotation there. So two different ways, and we've got them covered off today.
Absolutely, you're right. And Environment Canada, we work so closely together with Environment Canada because just a reminder, as you know, of course, Kim, that we don't issue the watches and warnings. They do, and we communicate those. And you're right. Like, you know, it could, you know, is it chicken and the egg? Is it the tornado warning was issued because Mark saw rotation and a funnel, or, you know, did Mark see that funnel afterwards? I don't know. We all work in conjunction together. The point is we're here to keep people safe. And I think that we've done a good job at that today, and we're not quite done yet because, by the way, I love that graphic you showed, Kim, with that tornado. I just love that. It's way easier to see it visually than trying to explain it with my little arrows that I'm drawing. But anyway, love that graphic. I wish I could take claim that I built that one, but I didn't. Anyway, it's great. It does make you really appreciate how all of the mechanics of a thunderstorm happen and come together. This storm that now is east of Ottawa, so this is good news. Ottawa, you are in the clear. I can't even imagine all the photos that must be coming out across Ottawa, because I imagine they would have seen some strong wind gusts, some heavy rain, some hail. And this storm is by no means weakening, and it's still got that look to it. That look kind of like this, okay? So it's got this big anvil over here. We know there's probably some mammatus clouds over here. And then we've got, you know, the core over here with some hail. We've got this sort of inflow notch over here happening with possibly a new building piece of the storm. So we're, you know, it's in a favorable environment for rotation. So, and you know what I also have noticed about this storm just in the last few scans, it seems to be maybe slightly turning right. So we know that supercells sometimes will be going in one direction, and sometimes when they're intensifying, they can kind of make a right turn. We call them a right moving supercell. Take note of that, because it does seem to be just ever so slightly. It was kind of moving toward Ottawa, and you can see now the precipitation field just slightly kind of turning to the right. So something to watch. These are all little nuances that we're always watching on radar, but they matter. Mark, where Mark is, I think he's probably somewhere in between both of these cells, but a few minutes ago when we had Mark, he was looking back to the west at this Stittsville core. That's why it was so dark, because he was looking into the core of that thunderstorm, which is likely producing rain and hail. And I think what he's trying to do is position himself to stay with this big storm cell here, which is the one that did potentially produce a funnel. Sure looked like it earlier. We'll look back at the video, of course. Did not produce a tornado, but it was tornado warned by Environment Canada a little bit earlier. Okay, let's go to Peterborough, because I had mentioned, and then I'm going to throw it back to you, Kim. I had mentioned earlier when I did kind of a zoomed out look at Peterborough, I said, boy, that looks like it's slow moving. I actually did say that. I thought, because it seems like we've been watching this storm near Peterborough and Lindsay for a long while. Am I right? Well, it's because we have been, and it has been moving rather slowly. And what's happening is there's new storms that are kind of, it's called back building. So I'll press pause. What happens is you had the main storm that was in Lindsay and it pushed east toward Peterborough, but you've got new storms, new updrafts developing around the area, and they keep going over the same area. So that's called a back building thunderstorm. So in and around this area, they have seen likely some heavy rain. And I'm going to see if I can possibly get a precipitation. Let's see if I can do that. No, I can't do that there. Stay with me here. I don't think I have the way of doing. Let me see if the US radar will pick up on this, and I will see if I can pick up on precipitation that way. Darn it, I don't think I can. So I was going to see if I could see how much rain has fallen in that area. If anyone knows back in studio. Oh, it's under the drop down under hydrology. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to come back to that if you don't mind. Kim, I'll throw it back to you, and I'm going to come back and see if I can get a rain estimate via radar in the Peterborough area, because those storms have been training and it's possible we're seeing some flooding. Let me figure that out.
Just what we didn't want to happen. One of the things we thought, okay, well, if they're moving quickly, but when you get one storm after another in the same spot, that's what training is, because they move like a train, and then boom, you get that heavy rain. I just want to see if I can grab this here. So this is Andrew Macklin captured that same storm. This is on Twitter. This is the storm that obviously that Mark Robinson was on earlier, and it was showing some lowering as well. Interesting story about Andrew is that I am going to be featuring Andrew on an upcoming Candid Close-Up, and he is a storm chaser in Eastern Ontario, and I had an interview booked with him at 3 p.m. today, and I said, sorry, Andrew, can we reschedule for tomorrow because I have to go live with these storms? And he said, well, truth be told, I'd also like to be on these storms, which worked out serendipitously. So, but Andrew is very active on Twitter right now. Andrew Macklin, WX for weather. So if you want to follow him, he's on these storms as well. I love to see what all the storm chasers are doing, all the people who have eyes on this storm. And of course, our storm hunter, Mark Robinson, has been all over these storms, right place, right time. We still have that severe thunderstorm warning that's rolling right through the area, through the Ottawa area, obviously a big city. If you're not in the severe thunderstorm warning, you're likely in a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch. So this is an atmosphere that's conducive for storms, and we're talking about areas from, well, let's say on the Quebec side, crossing the Ottawa River and then stretching all the way through Georgian Bay and into Lake Huron as well. So it seems almost endless, and this is that boundary. So this is the cold front that's coming through, and we were talking about the heavy rainfall on these storms, and especially if you're going to be hit over and over again, then we're talking about pooling, then localized flooding possibly, and certainly driving would be hazardous, not only because it's hard to see, so visibility is poor, but also because of hydroplaning. So if the water starts to pool on the road, then you're in trouble. And you know, this happened to me just the other day. Not a particular big storm, not a warned storm, just heavy amounts of rain coming down at once, windshield wipers going, can barely see a thing. People are pulling over. I have the hazards on, and then going through a pothole that is filled with water. Not great either. So then that gets a little bit scary. So all of this can happen with these storms. And what I'm hoping, Jacqueline, is everybody is comfortable in their homes. Their work day is done. Yeah. They're just watching the live stream and watching this all unfold, but nobody has put themselves in any kind of danger.
We can hope. And that's the thing with thunderstorms, right, Kim, is that you'll in one area like Peterborough or Lindsay and those areas, Bob Cajun, they've been seeing storms today, but then maybe if you were 20 kilometers south of there, you weren't seeing anything. You're sitting on your back porch and it's a beautiful day. And thunderstorms are so localized that it's hard sometimes to get the message out to everybody to, just remain safe and keep your eyes to the sky and keep your Weather Network app with you at all times. And that'll help you because you'll get those severe thunderstorm warnings. Okay, I promised you I would get this, and thank you, Rachel Modestino, meteorologist with the Weather Network, for helping with this, because this is important. These training thunderstorms, these thunderstorms that just kept back building and kind of running over the same area, it would appear like areas north of Lindsay and Omemee, I think that Omemee, looked like they could have seen maybe upwards to 50 millimeters, maybe even 75 millimeters of rain. If I was to just see if this will work. Yeah. Okay, so this is in inches. I apologize, but these are, 3.6, 3.8 inches of rain. I'll get rid of that, and, you get the idea. If I convert that, oh, geez, let me just try that again. Oh, boy, let's see if that'll work. And where did it go? Maybe here. Okay, I've lost it again. Let's go back to this one. Nope, stay with me, team. I will get this back in 2 seconds. I think that should be working. Huh. I don't know why. I'm having a technical error. But anyway, you saw that was upwards to 50 millimeters of rain in that particular area. I don't know why my data is not coming in at the moment, but I'll come back with that. Point is that areas like Kennedon Park, probably Dunsford, Lakeview Estates, Ennismore, Bridge North, Peterborough, all those areas could have seen quite a bit in the way of heavy rain and potentially flooding. Would love some reports from you if you have any. Okay, our own Mark Robinson, since I'm having some technical errors, I'd love to see your position, Mark, and where you ended up. Give us the latest.
I am just south of Ottawa, just west or east of the town of Manotick, headed towards the small town of Greeley. These storms are beginning to congeal together, which is kind of interesting. Hopefully you can hear me, because I am having a little bit of trouble with the signal now, which is usually what you expect inside one of these storms. There's been some small hail, nothing big yet, and some winds, not too much. There was wall clouds, definitely something that looked earlier very tornadic, but obviously was not. It's one of those false funnels that you sometimes get. You look at it and go, oh my goodness. But I can't see anything anymore because I am in the core. These storms are moving pretty quick, so they may move ahead of me, and I may be about to lose them other than just sort of being stuck inside the core and saying, wow, look at all the rain, look at all the wind. And that, unfortunately, usually means once the storms get past you and they're moving at the speeds they are, you just can't follow them. But I'll follow it as long as I can, just so that you'll keep talking to me, Jack.
Okay, well, I would have anyway. But you know what, Manotick, if I just take my radar full for a second, stay with us, Mark, because I'd love to chat with you, but I don't know if there's a way of just going to the radar. Mark is in between Manotick and Greeley, and you can see that he's actually right under the core of this thunderstorm, but it has weakened, and that's why Mark is probably seeing just pea-sized hail or small hail and some heavy rain. So Mark, this that totally corresponds to what we're seeing on radar here in studio, and it also means, and I want to let you know, that the rotation and the look of the storm has really significantly changed and weakened out, so you're very safe to be where you're at, which I'm sure you already know, but you're very safe. Viewers need to know that there's no tornadic threat right now. This is just basically rain at this point from what I'm seeing on radar. Mark?
Yeah, definitely, Jack. But here's the thing. I mean, you're safe from anything like tornadoes, but take a look around. There's a lot of cars moving around, and you want to be moving a little bit slow. As much as I want everyone to drive really, really fast so that I can, so I can get back into the storms. Best thing to do: keep it slow, keep it easy. Don't try to race ahead. You will get there. if you stay on the road and you don't end up in the ditch. Just keep that always in mind. You definitely want to make sure that you get home, and and taking it easy is the best way to do it. You are going to get a bit of rain ponding on the roads. Whoa, that was a close close strike. I don't know if you could hear it on the audio here, but definitely a kabam. Oh, and I'm seeing a big lowered wall cloud just to my north. Right now, it's kind of hard to see. It's right sort of in between the two cells, and I'm just going to continue on to the east and just towards the 417 past Greeley and then over to the 417 just to follow this one. Now, as these storms congeal together, that will probably be it. Once this is a big long line, usually you don't get much, but it's still got a little oomph to it. And as I was saying, the big oomph right now is all the rain falling and you're driving home from work.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe headed up to a cottage this hour. It's like we're right before the civic holiday long weekend. Lots of people traveling. And Mark just showed us, or I did hear that lightning, or heard the thunder. Basically, look at the amount of lightning on this. If I go to our lightning counter, let's see, look at this. I mean, we've seen well over 2,500 lightning strikes throughout this line of storms. These are very heavy rainmakers still, and as Mark said, you still can start to see these features like little spin-ups, and even things like that within a line of storms are possible. Yeah, I'm just looking here at the latest. Somebody back home is giving us an update. There is a bit of Mark is right. There's a little bit of an area of rotation to his north embedded. So this can happen where you just get a little brief spin up or a little brief area of rotation. That's the best way I can explain it. But usually it doesn't mean more than usually. Yeah, and I guess what he's probably seeing, he's in between. I'm going to go right back to Kim in just a second. He's probably seeing this little area of rotation, maybe this little notchy area kind of embedded. So maybe in and around this area of the storm is possible. I don't suspect, Kim, that this is going to be anything that occurs out of this purely because, it's a pretty much lined out collection of thunderstorms now. They're not that isolated look. We've got another line up there. Anything's on the table, but no tornado warnings in place right now, and we'll send it into the studio with you.
That's the thing with the atmosphere. You can have years of experience, and how storms behave to a certain degree, but there's always that element when they'll do what they will do, and they can surprise you. So you can predict as much as you want to, but in the end, there could be one little variable that you didn't see coming. I just wanted to show you the temperature difference. So ahead of this cold front versus behind the cold front, 17 degrees in Muskoka versus 28 degrees in Toronto. So it's very clear where that front has been versus where it has not. Muskoka has been seeing thunderstorms for much of the afternoon. Ottawa's temperature has dropped now to 22 degrees, Kingston's to 23, but Toronto, St. Catharines, London, Windsor, all still sunny, all looking good. Through the overnight hours, we still have the risk for thunderstorms. The best chance of severe weather will be again Eastern Ontario from Cobourg to Cornwall, but everywhere else has the risk of thunderstorms. We're not expecting them to be severe the later it gets into the overnight. And then when it comes to Friday, still some instability in the atmosphere, still could see a pop-up thunderstorm as we head into the long weekend. But the best chance of severe weather will be through the eastern townships in Quebec at that point in time. So the severe storms now are lining out. That's what Jacqueline is calling it, when they start to all come together versus these discrete cells, which is when the storms are individual and popping up. And that's the more dangerous scenario. Although we talk about squall lines and we talk about thunderstorms in a line causing all kinds of wind damage, there's always potential for that too. But when it comes to actual tornadoes and rotation, you usually need these individual storms, and that's what we were seeing earlier when these storms were much more separated, but now they're kind of all together. But that's a lot of rain, and for people heading to the cottage, I can just imagine, Jacqueline, somebody leaving Toronto, it's 28 degrees and sunny, and they get to Muskoka and it's 17 degrees, and it's really not that far of a drive, a couple hours and you're there, and all of a sudden, the temperature's way colder.
Right. they'd be shaking their finger at the
Oh,
weather
we have a
network going,
tornado.
wait a
Oh,
minute,
yes,
hang on
exactly.
a second.
Jacqueline,
Oh,
I take
tornado
it.
warning.
Yeah, I take
Tornado
everything
warning?
back. We've got a warning. Yeah, it's just going to be
Okay.
brought over to me. I'll read it 1 second. So maybe that sneaky cell did it. Okay.
Maybe.
All right. So again, right back into the same places. So Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans are back in the tornado warning. There's nothing else here that's specific, updated, or ended by 7:49 p.m. Eastern. So at 6:50 p.m., Environment Canada meteorologists are tracking a severe thunderstorm that is possibly producing a tornado. That's what we talk about, the possibility of a tornado. Damaging winds, large hail, and locally intense rainfall are also possible. That's a generic statement that we often hear from Environment and Climate Change Canada. So this is what they'll do. They will issue the warning, first of all, and then they will get into the details of the smaller places that would be impacted by this particular storm. I know you're looking at this now. Yeah, the tornado warning hasn't popped up just yet.
It hasn't even popped in yet.
No,
Yeah.
I can see that. But it's the exact same spot that we had
But we
before.
will get that.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely, Kim. I'm a little bit baffled over here too, because if we could maybe just bring up my radar quickly, but leave Kim up for discussion, because Kim, you know, we were talking, actually Mark was the one who said, hey, I saw a little bit of embedded rotation. I have to wonder if it's just this little notchy area here, and maybe that's why this went warned again. See if the tornado warning has come in yet. I don't think it still has even, what a mess on this graphic right now. It has still not come in on our
popping up
system,
yet.
but it is there. Could you read those locations again for viewers?
Yes, it's Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans are the areas that are all in the tornado warning. So the areas that were in before, back in again. No specifics yet on this particular cell, but obviously you have a look at what they're thinking, and yeah, it could possibly be what Mark had his eyes on just a short time ago when we were last with him. Yeah, interesting scenario
That's very
here.
possible.
And again, you know, we were saying that the tornado watches hadn't dropped yet, and we were still looking at severe thunderstorms through the region. They look a lot different than they did earlier, Jacqueline, but yeah, there's potential here.
They sure do. And sometimes when we get these lines of storms, it doesn't always happen. But okay, so all these storms have kind of joined forces, right? They've hooked up together. They're holding hands, if you will. You still can get these little notches here that warrant some rotation, but usually it's pretty short-lived, because you got to think that even if you do have an area of rotation, you've got this storm, all this precipitation moving in this direction. It's going to blast through that kind of thing, because it's a line of storms. I hope that's making sense. But someone coined it. What did our meteorologist Michael Carter say? Downward. What do you say? Downdraft demolition derby. And I like that, because what that means is that, you know, you're going to get cold air that's going to be kind of plowing through this area momentarily. But
we have some
until
new warnings,
it does,
Jacqueline.
evidently. Oh, please,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Sorry, I have
Kim.
to interrupt you. Okay, so Ottawa South,
Of course.
Richmond and Metcalfe are now in. Prescott and Russell. So Ottawa South, Richmond, Metcalfe, Prescott, and Russell are now on top of Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans. Now let's go to Mark Robinson.
Mark, can you hear us? Are you with us? I don't know if Mark is hearing us or not. It looks like his shot is frozen on my end. But I can take it away here, Kim, if you'd like. Kim just read out some of those areas that are under the tornado warning. I'm looking at the radar here, and basically we are watching that area near Greeley. So Metcalfe, Kenmore, Vernon, Russell, Greeley, all those areas are potentially seeing, a rotating storm. This is a tricky one. It's almost like, the area of rotation is just near Russell. So there's a couple things that could be going on here. It could be this little notchy area here where we're seeing a bit of rotation, or it might actually be maybe over here, because sometimes when you get this line of storms forming a bow shape, like a bow and arrow, you get these sort of bookend vortices that can happen. I don't think that's what's going on, but I think it's probably in this area, but I haven't had time to even look on my more granular radar products. But here, let's do a zoomed out view. Let's go back and see if that tornado warning has come in on my system. It has, good. So there is the area that is tornado warned. If you live in this area, we want you to get to a safe place. I'm trying to get that making a bit more sense, like so. So Russell, Stittsville, Carp, the same area that was warned earlier. I think it's for this embedded like rotation in this line of thunderstorms. I think that's probably what it is, all the way east to Hawkesbury. So it's a pretty large tornado warned area. And this, I think, is what it's for. This whole collection of storms here, obviously giving Environment Canada enough confidence to issue that warning, probably for some embedded rotational features on that line of storms. Let's go to Mark Robinson. I think we have him. Mark, what do you make of all this latest tornado warning? Can you tell us what you've been seeing the last few minutes? Obviously, I hear some hail and rain. Yeah?
Oh, good. You can hear me. I apologize. When you tried to come to me last, I was trying to get a hold of you. I went through almost 180-degree wind shift just near the town of just near Greeley. It was a full-on wind shift, and I was just like, "Oh, that's not good." So that one just got me a little bit like, holy cow. I did film going through it. Winds were probably close to 100 kilometers an hour going through. There's some small hail now on top of the car. I'm just sort of seeing out there. Nothing bigger, well, maybe dime-sized hail right now. At least one branch behind me ripped off a tree. I've stopped right now so that you can actually hear me, because I'm just worried I'll get into another area where you won't be able to hear, because this storm definitely had some rotation on it. Just as the tornado watch warning went off, I ran through that 180-degree wind shift. I think it's mostly downburst now.
Well, I'm not.
And I'm seeing a little bit of the. It's beginning to clear up a little bit to the north.
Mark, do you have the radar handy in front of you? Do you have radar scope or something on your phone that you can just bring up while I ask you a couple questions?
I do, yes.
Okay, so do you, because I'm a little taken by where this rotation is, I've kind of drawn like a little bow, and is it possible that that rotation was maybe a kind of a bookend vortice just north of Greeley? Is that why you think it just abruptly shifted, or do you think it's more of that notchy feature south of Russell that warranted the tornado warning?
The wind just shifted again on me. The wind just shifted again on me. It's like it just was going from behind the car and now suddenly hitting me in front of the car. That was a little bit strange. Sorry to interrupt. It easily could have been a bookend vortice there. But definitely it just the spin and the shift in the winds that I'm getting on this storm is very odd. Just because there could be like embedded areas of rotation and you can't see it. Like there's zero chance you're going to be able to see anything in the midst of this.
Well, and that makes us concerned just, for your own safety. And I know that you're a pro and, but I think it's just, we're getting some insight from Michael Carter, one of our meteorologists who's a great storm chaser and so knowledgeable. He's saying, short-lived embedded rotation as the right moving cell to the north got sort of folded into the southern cell. And two cells were basically merging, including the right mover from earlier. That explains those weird wind shifts that you're seeing, okay? So now for people that live here, Mark, I mean, the advice is stay put. We do have a tornado warning for this area. I'm showing that right now. Are you safe to be moving is the question, Mark, because that's the last thing we need you to do is to put yourself in an unsafe spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not seeing anything that's made me go, uh-oh. And if I looked off to my northwest at this point, I can literally see blue sky. So the storm is getting away from me a little bit. But definitely an interesting cell to suddenly hit. and I'll be watching this one just for a little bit. It is going to get away from me now, just because you know, I can't necessarily keep up with it. They are moving fairly quickly, and I want to make sure that, you know, again, you know, you're right, that I'm safe. And you know, and once they start to really get going and turn into a big line, you can't see much anymore, other than sort of experiencing kind of what it's like to be in a hurricane. You know what it's like.
Yes, I do. Yes, I certainly do. And you're right. That would probably be the best comparison. You're sitting in like, you know, tropical storm conditions right now. And, you know, this is all going to be moving relatively fast to the east. And that's good news, because you will be in the clear, as will most residents in the Ottawa and Gatineau area will be in the clear. But we're still looking, Mark, as I'm speaking to you, I'm showing a national look at the radar. And, you know, this line is quite impressive. I would say that the strongest winds and the strongest, like, linear feature would be moving into Saint-Agathe-de-Mont momentarily. This is east of Mont-Laurier, Quebec. You know, it's all upwards to probably 90 to 100 kilometer an hour winds up in there, I would guess, just because it's a very strong line of storms with a really tight reflectivity gradient, and you know what that means, Mark. Where you're at, yeah, I'm just really watching it closely. We appreciate all of your updates, and you know, stay with us so that we can continue to track whatever you're seeing. But I think it's probably going to be east of you rather soon. Hey, Mark, did you hear about the storm in Peterborough, Ontario? Has put down quite a bit in the way of rainfall. You've seen this time and time and again when it comes to training storms. You know, we have seen, basically, I'm going to show it while we're talking, Mark, if you could just stay with me. I'm going to go and show the radar estimated 6-hour rainfall. Down in Peterborough, they possibly have seen upwards to 50 to even 75 millimeters of rainfall with those training storms.
Wow, yeah, that is an impressive amount. And it's funny, as you were talking, I pulled up the radar and just ran a loop on it. And yeah, the funny thing was, I was actually in Peterborough earlier. I chose to come out to the Ottawa region, but if I'd stayed in Peterborough, I would have got a good storm there too. So either place, but definitely. Oh, Jack, you were talking about bolt from the blue. There was just a bolt from the blue off to the left, pretty far away, but still not inside the main part of the storm. So yeah, this has been an extremely active, electrically active storm, and I think that's just because you've got all that hail in there. That tends to, you know, really get that lightning, you know, just, you know, hitting so much. And so yeah, I think at some point I'll begin to head back towards home, and maybe I'll pass through that Peterborough area and check to see how much flooding is there, because I mean, it's still going, and there's another line of storms coming. It is. You bet. I was just going to say the same. You know, I think it's Highway 7. I would be heading west back to Peterborough. I know that's sort of near your cottage as well. You know, check it out, because it's still going strong. And I can only imagine that there would be some flooding in that area. And I hope everybody is okay on the roadways. A lot of people, of course, Mark, traveling for a long weekend. You know, are you headed to the cottage this long weekend? You know what, Jack? I'm not. This weekend we're staying home, but I'm on holidays next week. So I'll actually be. Nice. No, not next week. The week after. So I'll be going to the cottage then. So you know that's when we're going to get lots of thunderstorms, and I'll have to completely miss my holidays, right? You know that's what's going to happen. Okay, no sympathy here, no sympathy here. All right, thanks, Mark. Listen, we'll check back in with you. Thank you for the extraordinary coverage, as per usual, and you stay safe. Let's go back to the radar here and show you just kind of a national view. And I think I'd like to get back to Kim McDonald in studio, if she is available, to maybe give us an update on the watches and warnings, because, well, we had that tornado warning. Has that ended? Is Kim with us right now?
I am.
If she's not, that's okay.
I'm still here.
Okay, Kim, what's the latest on the watches and warnings situation?
Yeah, so nothing has changed as far as I know. Tornado warning continues. Ottawa South, Richmond, Metcalfe, Prescott, and Russell, as well as Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans. And they're saying in that last statement that was issued by Environment Canada at 6:53 p.m. that the areas that were of concern were Vars, St. Onge, and Embrun. Embrun, sorry, Vars, St. Ange, and Embrun, and apologies if I am mispronouncing any of those. And like they had said before in the earlier warnings, ping pong ball-sized hail and 90-kilometer-per-hour wind gusts are a possibility with these storms. And as we've seen too, we've had the heavy amounts of rain, lightning on these storms, hail earlier as well. And again, as a reminder, take shelter in a basement or the lowest level possible if you don't have a basement, because we know that not everybody does. Get into an interior room. So what we want you to do is be away from any kind of flying or falling debris, because that is what is going to injure you. It's the strong winds, and if there's anything loose, objects around your house on the outside of your property, and you're sitting outside on your porch maybe trying to get a look at the storm and then something comes flying, that's when you can get hurt and you may not see it coming. So that's why we always say lowest room in your home, especially if it's a strong tornado, because we've seen damage even in this country, not just stateside. I know Jacqueline has seen a lot of damage from massive tornadoes, but we've seen it here too, where siding is ripped off homes, roofs are ripped off, that kind of thing, and where we want you to be is the safest place possible. These storms continue in eastern Ontario, but they stretch all the way back to the shores of Georgian Bay, starting to break up a little bit there, becoming a little more individual, but the tornado watch certainly hasn't ended. The tornado warning is in place. So the area in pink, that's what we're looking at here, that is the tornado warning. Anywhere in the red, severe thunderstorm warning. And it's because of severe thunderstorms that we see tornadoes. That's how they develop, for the most part, unless we're talking about not a non-supercell tornado. And everywhere in yellow is a severe thunderstorm watch, meaning that there's potential for severe weather to develop. So again, the areas: Ottawa South, Richmond, Metcalfe, Prescott, and Russell, Ottawa North, Canada, and Orleans, all in that tornado warning in pink. And the areas impacted include Vars, St. Ange, and Embrun. So those are all of the areas that we're talking about. And Jacqueline, you've been looking at the radar. It's been doing a lot of funky things, and Mark has been experiencing it firsthand when he's talking about the winds coming in from different directions, and it looks like it's because those cells separated.
And Mark's doing a lot of funky things too. He's been known to do a lot of funky things out in the field. Okay, let's get into it, because I am used to that. Yeah, I could write a book, actually, but I love him. You're one of my best friends. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this storm, because Mark told us a little bit about the rotation that he saw, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I think I understand a little clearer now, seeing what the storm has been doing. So you can see that there was basically, at the beginning of the scan, there were two separate storms. Then they joined forces, and the northern one got kind of folded in and sort of wrapped around the backside. So I'm going to pause this and I'll show you kind of what I mean. It kind of got sort of folded in this way. And when it was doing that, there's a lot of cold air that's sort of pushing out and winning against the warm air. So it formed what we call a bow shape. That's why it's in that shape. And sometimes, it's getting a bit of a mess. Let me get my pencil again. It's formed that kind of bow shape. And sometimes you can get these little embedded areas of rotation on either ends of these bows, and they're usually pretty short-lived. And I'm thinking now that's precisely what's gone on, because as we see, Environment Canada just mentioned the areas of Vars, Embrun, Limoges, I hope I'm saying that right, but those are all in this area kind of thing, in and around Russell. So I'm assuming they're expecting those little brief spin-ups to possibly happen again, and you never know. Something could, all it takes is vorticity to spin up quickly, and before night you've got strong winds that could maybe do damage. So I thought I'd give a little explainer on what a bow echo is. I'll do it quickly, but you've got scattered storms in an environment like we saw today. You get them sort of becoming linear, like a line of storms, and then sometimes the cold air wins against the warm air, and they're stronger, and they start pushing it ahead, and lo and behold, it kind of takes on that bow shaped, okay? And we actually call it a bow echo. And sometimes those bow echoes can get those little brief spin ups. So kind of an interesting, hopefully that's helpful, and I didn't just bore people to tears. But, you know, we've got that tornado warning still in place, likely for that reason. So these are not bona fide supercellular storms, Kim, where they're isolated and you get that classic wall cloud, and then, you know, the rotation starts to tighten up and then you get a tornado. I don't suspect that's what anybody's seeing, nor that that's what's happening in the field. Let's take a look at the overall shape and look of the storms as we get into the overnight hours, because I know that you know, a lot of people have been asking about Montreal, Kim. Well, those storms are going to be pushing through Montreal around 8, 9 p.m. and things should clear out by the early morning hours. I know there's some new warnings to tell viewers about. Over to you, Kim.
The good news is some have dropped, Jacqueline, which is just as important news,
Good.
I think, as new ones being
Yes,
issued.
it is.
So we still have areas that are in the tornado warning, but out of the tornado warning now, Ottawa South, Richmond, and Metcalfe. So they are no longer in the tornado warning, but Ottawa North, Canada, Orleans, Prescott, and Russell, they all continue to be in that warned area. So a few areas have dropped, which is good news. Locations impacted now include Bourget, Westminster, Vars, Sarsfield, Hammond, Glenburn, Lemieux, Rockdale, and Riceville. So these are the areas that could be impacted by this storm. I'll go over it again. Please forgive any mispronunciation. Some of these are quite small towns. Bourget, Westminster, Vars, Sarsfield, Hammond, Glenburn, Lemieux, Rockdale, and Riceville. These are the areas. So the confirmed tornado, now it's saying a confirmed tornado is located near Vars, moving east at 50 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
I don't know how often we hear those words, but that's what ECCC is saying right now. Hazards again, ping pong ball sized hail, 90 kilometer per hour wind gusts. So a confirmed tornado moving east at 50 kilometers per hour. I just wanted to check something.
Wow.
I'll come right back. I just saw a tweet about a specific spot where they are seeing something, rotation perhaps. I had the place name, Bensfort Corners. Bensfort Corners, Bensfort Corners, which makes me think it's probably
I'm looking
a small
here
spot.
as I'm looking as well on, because you said confirmed tornado, at least in the last few minutes, by Environment Canada near Vars, correct?
Yep. So,
okay,
they
I
said,
don't see.
Yeah, right now
One more
they
time.
said it's
Can you
moving
spell that
east.
again?
The latest one I just saw, a tweet, it was BENSFORT
Yep.
Corners.
Okay, I'm looking here.
It's not mentioned
yes, found
in
it.
the
Okay.
actual warning.
I found it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Bensford Corners. Hold on a second. I've got the wrong one. I think there's a Bensford Corners down toward Peterborough, so that can't be it. Although there was a storm down Peterborough, but
Although,
that
you know
can't
what?
be
It could
I'm
be.
having trouble.
No, you know what? It could be. I think
Yeah?
that storm chaser is in that area, and they're talking about rotation down
Oh,
there.
okay.
So I take that back. That's
Oh,
you're probably
okay.
correct. That's probably
No, that's fine.
exactly what they're looking at. But they're saying there was rotation on that storm, and that was posted about 5 minutes ago. So I was just thinking, okay, well maybe.
Well, that's good. No,
yeah.
yeah, that's good information to know, Kim, for sure. Because if a storm chaser is seeing rotation, you know that, as we know, can sometimes trigger a tornado warning from ECCC. So,
Yes.
no, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, yeah, Bensford Corners, that's sort of east of Peterborough, from what I can get. I think it's
Okay.
just south and east. Kim is saying that she is seeing, or she's reading on Twitter or somewhere on social media that. Oh, can I call it Twitter? X? I don't know. Anyway,
Call it Twitter.
there is rotation. Okay, call it Twitter. I want to go back. Kim, stay with me here, but I'm just going to show the radar. I am showing the radar right now because that rotation near. Okay, so you know where the confirmed tornado was near Vars?
Yes.
That rotation is exactly in that sort of area we were looking at, like that bookend sort of vortice area. I think it's going to be in this area where Vars is, which Vars is, just stay with me here, friends, I'm doing lots all at once. Vars is, let's see here, Vars is north of Embrun. Okay, north and east of Russell. So there you go. That totally makes sense. It's going to be right on that sort of bookend area. That's what I'm calling it right now. This little notchy area, that's where, that would be where that rotation could be. And And apparently, and I'm seeing it on radar too, yeah, it's rotating there, and there's been a confirmed tornado in Vars, Ontario. If anyone has any information, share, but if you live in this area, don't go outside to get a photo from us. We don't want it. Get to a safe spot. That's where we want you to be right now. Kim, over to you with the latest.
They've dropped the warning for Ottawa, North, Canada, and Orleans. Now it says on this particular warning that Prescott and Russell are still in, although on my tornado map it has disappeared altogether. So on my map in studio, the tornado warning is completely gone, but on this paper that was just issued by Environment Canada at 7:13, so 2 minutes ago pretty much, it says Prescott and Russell still in, Ottawa, North, Canada, and Orleans are now out of the warning, but it still does say, as you mentioned, a confirmed tornado is located near Vars, moving east at 50 kilometers
still there
per hour.
Wow.
So
wow.
they may just not have updated that part. I'm not sure.
Sure, that's possible. Looking at the radar in front of me, I mean, again, it's a tricky one because it's like on the weird side of the storm. But yeah, I mean, just a little bit of a notch here, I guess, enough rotation here that something either briefly spun up. I can't imagine it's something that's hanging on and on the ground very long, but I could be wrong. Normally when you see these types of events, this is where you would find sort of the typical area for rotation on sort of the edge at the southern part of the storm, not on the back side of the north side of the storm, but it can happen. All things are on the table. So we will continue to keep you posted on that if we find out any information on Twitter, what people are seeing on social media. Maybe there's a chaser on this. The warning is still going. I'm just going to read here some updates. Oh, hold on here. Did we get all dropped? Severe thunderstorm warning for Prescott. Okay, it sounds like it just dropped, Kim, for real. So replaces tornado warning for Prescott and Russell. Seems, is that the information you're getting as well?
I just heard that they were dropped. I still don't have the paper on that. I mean, the last one I said, we were seeing that the map didn't show it anymore, but they were still saying that Prescott and Russell were in.
Right.
So I'm going to go with that they have come to an end.
I think they have. Yeah,
okay,
that's good news.
Yes, but now I'm interested in seeing what happened with that tornado on the ground. If they have confirmed
tornado,
it must have been. There must be video or photo evidence or something like that.
Yes. Listen, just as a recap, fantastic work to you, Kim. Thank you to everybody that's been staying with us throughout this live stream. It's certainly been a busy day, Kim.
Yes.
And, kudos to our team of forecasters as well. We're not going anywhere. Don't worry. I don't think we're closing out the stream yet, but I just wanted to pause for a minute and say, good job with our forecasters and Environment Canada as well to isolate that area for the greatest risk for tornadoes. And we've seen maybe 4 or 5 tornado warnings throughout the day, maybe more, in that Ottawa region and certainly east of there. So good job to all.
And it shows too the technology gets better and better. This has to happen, and we talk often about tornado warnings and not giving people enough time, and that's because tornadoes can just develop out of any severe thunderstorm. So it's difficult to predict which storms will produce a tornado. But if you can see that the atmosphere is right for something like that to happen, a watch is the best place or the best way to go, and that's exactly what Environment and Climate Change Canada did, which is fantastic. Want to do a shout out to our media producers as well behind the scenes. Everybody's working hard here trying to get us the best information and keep us broadcasting as well on all of our platforms, Jacqueline, and you're certainly doing a great job covering these storm cells that are mutating every time we look at them. Have I lost
Kim,
you?
my earphone fell out, so yeah, I'm back. But I didn't hear all that, but I think you were complimenting me, but we'll take that off air, so thank you for the compliment. I missed it. It was like, Jacqueline, you're doing a great, and then it fell out. Thank you. Right back to you and the whole team. All right, let's, I'll just take it away here for a second and just look at the national look at radar and kind of see like an overview of where we're at. We have a training line of thunderstorms through the Peterborough area that is still ongoing, it would appear. Look at this, just stalling right out and north of Peterborough. Looks like just south of Bob Cajun. Lakefield, yeah, Lakefield, Norwood, you're about to get into some heavy rain. I'm going to just go back to the radar rain estimate product. Let me see if I can get that for everyone here. Let's see, is that right? Trying here to get that. I don't think that's working. 1 second, stay with me. Okay, this should work now. And I am going to see just how much rainfall has fallen in the last 6 hours. Okay, so it hasn't really changed in terms of the amounts back to the west. Oh, geez. Why do I keep doing that? I apologize, viewers. Let me try that again. There. There's a bit of a glitch, I think. Let me see if that will work. Radar. Oh, geez, I seem to be having... Can we go back to you, Kim? I'm having a technical problem. I apologize. I'll get that back, though, in a second. I mean, at a quick glance there, it looks like about 50 to 75 millimeters of rainfall east of Lindsay, and now probably close to 50 millimeters of rain in the Peterborough area as well. So
and this is that
if anybody has any updates in that area, that's right.
That's right. So this is the tweet that I was talking about. Chris Knox Photography on Twitter, who is the person that I was talking about earlier. So he's a storm chaser. I featured him on Canada Close-Up, and this is Bensford Corners, Ontario, not that long ago, and he's saying rotation on this now. We're going to go to Mark Robinson now. I'm not sure where our storm hunter is. He's been following these storms all around the Ottawa area, and of course we just heard on the latest warning that there was a confirmed tornado in the Vars area. Mark, where are you and what are you showing us? Did we freeze? He froze. Well, that's what's going to happen.
The Latrim town. I'm just taking a look just south of Ottawa.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we got you now. Got you now.
Okay, yeah, sorry, there's a big delay on here, so I'm just trying. I want to show you behind here, I'm actually seeing damage to this house. I'm seeing spatter all along the front of this house, really, really typical of tornado. Now, of course, we can't confirm it at all, but I'm going to show you a little closer. Look at that. That's insulation from the houses, from likely upstream somewhere. So I'm going to go and take a quick look around. But it does look like something came through here. I'm seeing a fairly narrow damage path at this point, and that was likely the tornado. I believe it was one of the other chasers, Connor, actually showed it, and I think that was the one I actually drove right through. That would be likely what happened, because it was such a dramatic shift and the winds were extraordinarily strong. So this right now, I'm going to start to take a look through this area. This is an area just south of Ottawa, Latrim, and I'm going to see if this is the first damage I've seen on this house right here. You can see some of the soffits have been pulled out, some of the insulation pulled out as well. So definitely some damage here in this neighborhood.
Mark, it's Jacqueline here. Great job, and boy, that's awful to see whenever we see an impact to a residential area. And you're right that I can see all the debris on the grass. Like it looks like it's peppered with like insulation and just small little bits of tiny debris. Mark, I have a question for you. What town exactly are you in? Because I don't know if I caught that, and I don't know if viewers caught that. Is it Latrin? Do you remember? Can you find that for us, even if it takes a minute, because that's important?
Litrim, I think. Yeah.
Litrim. Okay.
I'm
just looking here to see, because that's
the southeast of the Ottawa airport.
Southeast of the Ottawa.
Jack,
okay, now I got it.
Show you real close.
Oh yeah, Latrim. Okay, I got it. I got it. Thank you. Yes, I got it. Thank you for that. So southeast of Ottawa, the reason I want to look at that is I exactly. I just wanted to see if I could go back to a radar scan, and I unfortunately can't go back that far currently, but we'll get that for you, because it'd be very interesting to see what the radar looked like over Litrim at that time. And I'm seeing exactly where that location is. It's just south and east of Ottawa, just east of the airport. So where do you think you will go to see where there could be more debris? Maybe north of there, or?
Yeah, Jack, it does look like it was passing sort of in this direction right through, so it would have been coming from the east. I think it was coming almost almost due east, maybe a little bit south of east, and that does sort of correspond with what I saw when I was on the sort of basically the next road south of here. So this is, I would think, going to be the path. So if I'm going to take a look, I'm going to move just towards, just over here to the just to the west here, because again, you're right, I'm seeing all kinds of insulation on the ground, which means something got hit a little further upstream.
Yes, I remember that exact moment when you were near Greeley and you said, I'm looking into it, a slight area of rotation. And that's the result of that rotation that you saw. Obviously something that was probably a brief spin up, but here we are in Le Trim. I hope we're saying that right. And Mark is verifying that there is an insulation blown around on the grass. You've got some siding down, Mark?
Yeah, now keep in mind, this is just the preliminary look. This could be straight line winds. It's going to take the Northern Tornadoes Project to come out here and take a look. But I'm going to log the different spots here and just show them where the damage is. So it's not confirmed at all, but like I definitely have found an area of damage. What did that damage? That is still going to be be determined. It could be straight line winds because there were definitely some very strong winds in there. It could also be a small tornado, but again, I'm going to stress right now, we are not confirming this at all. I'm not confirming. I'm just saying I found an area of damage here, just southeast of Ottawa.
Mark, that's Kim now. I don't know if you knew this, but in the last tornado warning, they said there was a confirmed tornado in Vars, which is southeast of Ottawa. So the last statement that when they issued the tornado warnings, and even after they started to drop, they said a confirmed tornado was near Vars. So do you know how close or far you are in Le Trim?
Yeah, Vars is probably about a 15-20 minute drive to my east at this point. And so that one system that moved on, and I couldn't keep up with it because I wanted to have a chance to be able to speak to you. Otherwise, I would have lost you again. So that one gone. I'm back towards here, but it's the same circulation that went along. So again, I'm going to have to take a look at this and see what if there is a narrow damage path and exactly where everything is to sort of let you know whether or not it's a narrow damage path or a very wide one. At this point, from what I've seen, it's narrow. But again, Northern Tornadoes Project will come and take a look.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for everything you did today, and stay safe. And that's what has to happen when you have a cluster of storms like the ones we've seen around the Peterborough area, certainly around the Ottawa area as well. If there is damage in the wake of these storms, then the Northern Tornado Projects will get out there and they'll look at that damage and they'll determine whether or not there was indeed a tornado. So, sometimes warnings are issued. Doesn't mean a tornado's on the ground, but it does mean that there is the possibility of one, and you need to get indoors. I'm going to bring Jacqueline back for our goodbyes. We got about a minute and a half here on the live stream. I want to thank everybody who joined us here today, people who tweeted at us and sent us their photos and videos. We really appreciate it. And of course, we'll continue to cover any severe weather on television.
That's right. Yeah, if another tornado warning happens, we're going to be with you every step of the way. And I echo what you just said, Kim. So helpful to have people sharing what they see on the ground if you're safe to do so.
Right.
Never put yourself in any danger to get us a video or a photo. We don't need it. We're looking at the radar. But when you are safe to do it, and some of the local chasers that are out there, boy, it's super helpful to have eyes on the ground. So we do appreciate that. Kim, fantastic work to all of you folks at headquarters. And, that line of storms is, of course, going to be pushing through southern Ontario, including probably the GTA. They might weaken by the time they get there, but into the evening hours, some active weather right across southern Ontario, Kim.
Yeah, and another reminder that whenever you go on vacation, you go to the cottage, you go to camping, people want to unplug, and I understand that, but make sure that you have your alerts. Make sure you have your phone, even if you don't check it for anything else, because if watches or warnings are issued, you're going to want to know about that in these areas as long as you have cell service. So thank you for joining us today. Of course, we're on all the platforms. We can give you your weather on anything you need on your phones, on your laptop, and of course on your television. Thanks for being with us.